Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. The Practical Guitarist Podcast is brought to you by Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Great Lakes Guitar Pickups provides fantasy tones at prices a practical guitarist will love. Featuring top-notch construction, attention to detail, and a fully custom product, if you can dream it, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups can probably build it. Follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Are you a regular listener? Why not? David here reminding you of all the ways you can participate in the Practical Guitarist Podcast. Subscribe using your chosen podcast app. Review us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/practicalguitarist or on Twitter as @practguitarist. Support the show. Merchandise is available in our Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com. And donate to us via Patreon, available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. Reach out to us directly via email at questions@practicalguitarist.com. Hi, Jim.
Hi, David.
Hi, Nick.
Hey, David.
Hey. So we got Nick Bongers here again today.
All right.
He's promoting his Great Lakes guitar pickups. I have in my hand, and I haven't opened them for the group yet, but I'm going to do it soon. Single coils that we'll be giving away for the month of March. February and March. These I'm looking forward to installing these. Jim, you had already kind of shared your thoughts before we started. And you said that the pickups that you have that we're giving away tomorrow, when I do the drawing, are the that they're like 8 out of 10. That's what she said, like 8, 9 out of 10, which is really good.
8, 9 out of 10. Yep.
Yeah.
And I would definitely pay the price for them. And I think that's what they're great value. Like I was showing before, they have a snap to them that doesn't get lost when you roll off on the volume. It doesn't get lost. Like they don't become this muddy mess when you roll back on the tone.
There's a ton of clarity, right?
Yeah, I'm going to do another video tonight or tomorrow morning before I cut them out and package them up for shipping. But the video is going to be, kind of like, okay, here's everything that they're capable of in this guitar and this amp.
Cool.
And I'm using an awesome amp, Nick. And I think this is one of your favorite amps. And it's a Katana.
Yeah. We were just briefly having a discussion where Nick actually straight up asked us, why do we love the Katana so much? And I kind of took myself back a little bit because I'm like, well, it doesn't really sound that great. Like it's not. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the Katana is a $350 amp that sounds like $1,000 amp. It's not. What I think it does do really well is it sits nicely within like the Hot Rod Deluxe kind of territory replacement stuff. $350. The Hot Rod Deluxe is $600, I think now.
Yeah, $500-600. And the Hot Rod Deluxe would be really heavy and really loud.
Heavy, loud, no effects. The effects loop on them is shit. And I'm probably going to catch some hate mail for that, but I think the effects loop on them is garbage because it's
on the Deluxe.
Yeah, it's noisy. I've had problems plugging things in and just like getting crazy hums and stuff going on. And then the clean channel on them, of course, is what everybody buys them for, but the drive channel is completely useless. And the Katana, at least you're going to get a usable drive sound, one of 3, right, and you're going to get a decent clean sound. And I think most people are into them because the clean sound with pedals, like they sound pretty good for that.
I guess to me, the Katana seems like an entry level gigging amp.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what.
So, I mean, as long as you take it for, it's like you said, it's not God's gift to solid state amplifiers, but it is a solid state entry level gigging amp.
I don't think I would even consider it solid state, Nick. I mean, the only thing that's in it that's solid state's the power amp, and that's Class D. So it's pretty new. It's basically neutral. Everything in it it's a GT1000 or GT100, not the 1000. A Boss GT100 effects processor slapped into a Class D power amp. That's what it is.
If they had put Bluetooth on it, it'd be even more useful.
Oh yeah, they save that for the Air, which is just ridiculous. But
yeah. And I want to say this: I liken the Katana because you got to remember this is not my primary gigging amp, but it's fine for playing in somebody's house, and I can still use it to gig, especially the 100. But I can get it loud enough to be heard over the drums and over everybody else. And I rehearse with a guy that's got a reverb and a Fender reverb, and I
Pro Reverb, yeah,
and I cut right through. And I'm not even. I showed him. I said I'm on 50 watts at quarter power. I got a lot of headroom. But I liken it more to like if you're going to go hunting, right, or camping or something, and you need some tools. Are you going to bring your toolbox, your giant toolbox, or are you going to bring your multi-tool? Sometimes the multi-tool is the right tool, and sometimes the whole toolbox is the right tool. And if you're just camping, and all you're going to do is maybe have to cut some fishing line and fix a can of soup or something, the multi-tool is just fine.
I bought mine for backup because
that's what this is.
I have no intention of using this thing as the primary live gigging amp. It's just
when I met David, it was basically off a shared love for nice amplifiers. So the fact that Dave has a Boss amp, I was like kind of twitching because I'm like, I thought he had more of an epicure for nice guitar amplifiers, and now he's kind of slumming it with the Katana. There must be something to it.
That's exactly it. So I have right now, and I'm just looking around the room because there's various things. I have a Mark 525. That's my primary amp for new listeners to the show or whatever. That's a Mesa Boogie. And then I have with a matching cab. And then I have the Helix, which is what I use at my house 99% of the time. And then I have a Katana head, which I use for when I go places. I actually have done rehearsals with the singer-songwriter, and I just take this, plug it into the wall, and knock it out.
I leave the amp one at one rehearsal place, and I truck it back and forth sometimes. That's my primary gigging amp, and then this thing is just a backup. It sits in the back of the car. But the nice thing is, like, I've left this thing on for like 24 hours at a time because I forgot that. But it's fine. It's whisper quiet. I'm not blowing tubes. I'm not. The maintenance on it is
zilch.
Blow the dust off every now and again.
And it has pretty much every connection option you could possibly want. I mean, that's the other thing is it's got freaking 2-foot switch jacks. It's got mine has MIDI and
JFC.
It also seems more socially acceptable to go to a gig and see somebody with a really nice guitar and then a shitty amp. You don't go to too many gigs. The guy has like this awesome freaking amp and then a crappy guitar. Yeah. I mean, like you said, you get a nice guitar, you get good pickups, and then whatever money you've got left, you kind of spend on the amp.
Yeah, it's kind of that way for some people. I mean, I said to David, I sent a picture to David of one of the popular country gigs or bands around here. He's playing a Lukather, which is a $3,000 guitar, through one of these right here, the Boss Katana.
No, he's got the 50 or whatever. He's got the little one, And that's slumming it right there.
Yeah. I mean, and he's making good money, in his thing. So he's got that, and I think his backup guitar is a can't remember. It's his down guitar, but it's a Fender Strat. I mean, in all honesty, and then if you look at his board, he didn't have a picture of his board up. He's got the Lagrange for pedal.
Yeah.
So that just proves that these things are good platforms for the pedals. He's got. I mean, that's his drive pedal. He's got a lot of different pedals. He's got the the MXR copy, and he's got,
right.
But it just shows that. As an overall Swiss Army knife, it does an all right job.
Yeah.
And again, if I was out like you do, the not Ace Frehley, I keep wanting to, Ace Frehley. You do the Ace Frehley thing, and so you would look stupid with this. I would laugh you off the stage, even when I was a teenager. I didn't know anything except I knew that Ace Frehley had Marshalls, not Boss katanas behind him. And
Yeah.
He
Well,
just
and
had the katana on the floor behind him.
Yeah, that's all a secret. You know, you can sidewash anything, but as long as you got that wall of marshals in the back, that's what people think you're playing through. That's part of the mystique and everything. I don't know. I feel like this Boss Katana hoopla is kind of reminiscent of maybe what PV was in the 80s with their solid state amps.
Kind of.
You know, because I never didn't like the PV solid state amps. I always thought they sounded good, but I found better amps as I kind of matured.
Sure,
Right.
and I think price point's a big part of that.
Yeah.
I do think the Waza head is probably pretty compelling if you need a super reliable, like, solid state amp.
Yep.
That would be kind of the thing I was looking at. And I told Jim already, like, I actually want to look at one, but no one has them, so it's going to have to wait till GearFest. But the other thing, everyone wants to compare the katanas to super high-end amps, and that's where I think it falls short. It's not going to do. I made a video where I compared it to my Mark 525, trying to get like a similar feel out of both amps. Not the same sound, but a similar feel. Mm-hmm. And this thing was, the katana was bright. It was way too bright, even through the same cab. And that's why I was like, well, it's a good backup.
If we want to put it this way, like, if that's the crappiest amp you own, like, quote unquote, my lowest end amp is an early 90s Tweed PV Classic 30 amp, and I was going to try selling it last week for $350, and I put new.
I'd buy that from you.
once I put new tubes in it, I was like, oh shit, I can't sell this anymore. It sounds. I mean, in a pinch, I would take this to any gig that I had to do.
Yeah, it depends on the needs too, because I mean, like, this thing is, you can have up to 4 channels, and so I mean, if you really need to have a couple of extra sounds on tap. And the other thing is, like, if you have a gig where you don't want to bring a pedal board, you could theoretically get by with this thing. I don't personally. I mean, if I had to buy the katana again, I was kind of thinking about this afternoon. I was like, I probably wouldn't. Because I of course have owned it twice, so don't listen to me at all, because I sold one and I bought it again. I would probably. I've been thinking about selling it. If I do, I'm getting another amp with the money that comes out of it, because I do need to have a second amp. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. The funny thing was, we were talking about the comparison thing. I'm in the katana users group, and today some guy blew up the internet over there, and he put a thread up there that, my Mark V is way better than this katana. And it was like, well, no shit. Like, no, really? I mean, you're comparing a $2,000 tube amp, from a premium manufacturer to this thing. I mean, my Maserati blows away my 1.9 liter.
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
No shit. Well, people got mad. The katana guys that's what got funny, because, like, the katana guys were defending him.
Oh,
yeah. Like, oh no, it's way better than any tube amp. I'm like, you guys are on drugs.
Yeah.
I'm reading this thread, and I'm like, what are you people smoking?
I take this back to the toolkit. I have a bag of tools, right, that I'm going to take to a gig. You see them right there? Well, you see three of them right there, right? So I'm going to take those 3 guitars. The Gibson's tuned down,
Gibson,
and the other 2 back each other up, right? Mm-hmm. And honestly, I play both of them. I just swap in and out because they're interchangeable. The SE and thing. And to be honest with you, and David knows, because I do it all week long. I go, oh, Dave, look at this guitar. This is so sweet.
Sometimes it's annoying.
Yeah, it's. I'm that guy. Look at that. But I found the tools that I like and I like to carry. It's really, the katana is just there just in case. I can leave it in the car. I don't have to worry about somebody breaking in to steal it, because if they do, they're an idiot. I can, be out there and playing through my amp 1.
That thread turned out to be such a tire fire, guys, that they actually deleted it.
Yeah, one of the things that we don't know is, just like we said, the katana's an entry-level amp, right? It's an entry-level whatever. So a lot of those people, and this kind of goes back to reviewing gear, like, people say, oh, this is the best amp on earth. Well, how many other amps have you played? Like,
Right.
you were saying tools. Like, if you go to Harbor Freight and you buy a 1/2-inch wrench for $3 and you've never tried the Snap-on box
Yes.
wrench,
Right.
One time
you don't know that, you're going to turn the wrench. It's going to work fine, but you don't know what else is out there and if it's any better. But you're going to go on Harbor Freight's website and, do, awesome reviews on the only wrench that you've ever used in your life.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, of course, in the gear community, you have people that like to lie about what they have, which is what's hysterical. And you got guys in there like, I sold my Bogner Ecstasy to get a katana. Like, there's no effing way.
You are so full of shit.
Yeah,
you sold your Bogner Ecstasy to pay for those drugs you got, and then bought a katana with what was left over.
No, he didn't buy no drugs. He didn't. He sold his Bogner Ecstasy, and then bought the katana, and obviously took a bath because he's a moron. I mean, seriously though, like who is actually going to buy that story?
Yeah, but it's the same thing when I hear somebody going, I've got a Squire vintage modified, and it's better than any freaking custom shop Strat I've ever owned. And I just want to say, well, then obviously the custom shop Strats suck ass.
No, I'm the first guy to point out that like you can find guitars at all price points that like are playable and sound are usable. But you're absolutely right. There's a couple things in that. Number one is
not better.
Let's face it, when you buy an expensive item, like let's say I buy a Ferrari, right? We all know that the Toyota Supra, if you put the work into it, is still one of the fastest cars on earth. If I buy a Ferrari, am I going to say that it's better than the Supra? Hell yeah, I probably am. Yeah. But that's the thing, like it's a status.
Who's going to sell their Ferrari to buy a Supra?
It's a status symbol. And that's my point.
Yeah. There you go. I can tell time on a Rolex, and I can tell time on a Casio G-Shock.
Yeah.
Okay. But which one am I going to tell time with and impress people with?
Yeah.
I mean, there is a point where that happens. That's the tipping point, right?
Sure.
If you're looking at all right, let's leave out custom shop. Let's just talk about the Fender Elites, right?
Yeah.
If the Fender Elite model is not as good as the vintage modified, what are people buying Fender Elites for?
That's my point. It would be a status thing.
Yeah.
At that level. I don't think it's all status. Like obviously I also believe in diminishing returns. I think at some point
right
you're paying a lot more for a lot less.
Yes.
But at the same time, I don't really feel like you're going to get a vintage modified that even if you get the pick of the litter model, it's going to be as good as the finish you're going to find on, a standard, premier level guitar like the Elites.
Right.
Yeah, I guess the difference is I know people that, especially like people like my brother, they've been playing guitar since, the late 70s. And if it was between owning like an Eric Johnson American Strat or owning 3 Squire vintage vibes, like he owns the vintage vibes and he puts my pickups in them, and now he's got more flavors than what he would have had on the one Eric Johnson.
Yeah, and I get that too. But one of the things that came up in that thread was somebody actually, and this just drove me nuts. They're like, well, you can have 10 katanas for the price of your Mesa.
Yeah.
And I stopped and I thought about that, and I said,
why?
No, not mine, because my Mesa was like $1,400.
Yeah.
So I could have like 5 katanas for the cost of my Mesa.
Yeah. I want 5 katanas.
I'd rather have 5 of the same fucking amp.
Wall of katanas.
Okay, so this is a great I think Nick took us into a great segue because so let's say, all right, so next month probably if he's winding if you're winding the Telly's pickups, you'll be sending to me.
He's winking at you right now, like wind some Telly pickups.
Okay.
You'll be sending them to me so that I'll put them in this Telecaster, right? We're gonna take this is a dropped on the floor Guitar Center special.
It literally is.
Yeah, it was dropped on the floor at Guitar Center. I don't know if you followed anything. So this guy right here will take pickups out of this Fender Squire Affinity. Woohoo! Lower than this. Well, I think the Bullet is lower than this, right? Okay. We're going to take it out of this guy. You can see where it dropped on the floor right there.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll put them in this, and I'll do all the riffs in it with these pickups in it. And then when you send when I get yours, I'll put them in here, and we'll do a comparison. I think the biggest thing, like, first of all, when you get to Telecasters, Stratocasters, this is the thing I want to stress. You get Tellies and Strats. It's a piece of wood with another piece of wood and some metal in it, right? Some electronics. It's just not that complicated.
No, that's a workhorse. That's a tool.
Well, you'd be surprised. I've happened to know a lot. Like I've built Partzocasters before, and the neck angle, the fit of the neck joint, how aligned the holes were when they drilled the holes to mount the bridge on there.
Yeah.
Like the quality of the metal in the bridge.
That's what I was going to say. The quality of the metal is
not outside of the finish, just how it was put together, like who did it, and how the measurements lined up is gonna, the playability. But either way, like my pickups are gonna smoke that. I can't wait to.
Yeah, I'm not talking about. So then, what I want to do, if I can do it, I want to get a high end telly here, and then play it. I got a couple of friends with some really high end tellies.
Yeah, he does.
And I'll put it side by side and do the recording. And even if I can get them to do it, then
have them play it.
Because there's a local guy that's got some like really, when I say high end, I'm talking about like Jeff Sen from Nashville put these things together. I mean, smoking guitars. And that way we can say, okay, we took this thing here and we're putting it up against that. How's it sound? I mean, he'll tell us about the feel, because for me, I hate Telecasters. I just hate them. Most of them. I don't get along with the neck. I don't get along with just the whole thing, whole vibe.
It's actually one of my favorite things to do. So I visit my family in Wisconsin every now and then, and a lot of the guys that I look up to are that worked at the guitar store when I was growing up. They've got a lot of nice vintage guitars. So I'll try and visit them, and I'll bring my Strat, and I'll say, hey, pull out that old Strat that you got that you let me play that one time, and like A/B it with this guitar and my pickups, and I get really, really good feedback that way. They say, yeah, this is good, but it's not, listen to this overtone, and then your head will kind of tilt a little bit, and you'll think, okay, I need to maybe do this or that to get it sound, but for a guitar that's worth $30,000, and then my Partzoccaster, which is maybe about $300, I mean, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, it's pretty close. I mean, I like the splitting hairs part of it, and to get somebody into your studio there that owns a nice telly, and to have him play that dropped Guitar Center telly and be like, oh wow, this is close. I mean, I'm not telling you that it's better, but
right, and we're not trying to convince anybody that it's better, but we want to get it to where it's close. And this was $140.
Yeah.
Hey Nick, I was just thinking about that amp that I traded you years ago. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Jim, but I'm looking on Reverb right now. Here's a Rivera 5512 for $450.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How much is shipping?
$100.
Yeah. What city is it in?
Bakersfield.
Oh, geez, California.
California.
Yeah, but that's why it's $100 shipping.
I like the 5512 Rivera, but the 30 watt, I think.
I know perfect. You got my 30 watt, and I'm like, I've been missing.
I thought I traded you a knucklehead, like 100 watt.
You did. You gave me the 100 watt knucklehead, man.
Yeah.
I had so much fun with that thing while I had it. I made my windows ripple.
Oh yeah. If you got the master on 3 or 4 and you can reach the knob, you're standing in the danger zone.
Dude, I had my master on 7, and I had a 4x12 cab with it was a carbon cab, but it had like basically G12s in it. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
David was sitting showing me his sales, that he made.
Oh yeah.
On Rivera, and the whole time he was crying, and he was singing, I ain't missing you at all.
But for those of you who don't know Rivera amps,
don't tell them. We need to keep them cheap.
Yeah.
No,
they're terrible. Don't buy them.
Yeah, they're awful, and you can't get good deals on them. Don't even think about buying the Rivera K-Tray that's on there right now for $850. Just don't.
No,
and that's. Oh, why did I say that out loud? I'm gonna have to edit that.
Oh.
I remember being a teenager and being like, I don't know a single person that uses Rivera amps.
No,
but the
they do
clean channel,
them.
the clean channel is better than a twin reverb, and the channel 1 is better than a Marshall, and it's both in one amp. The tone stack, bass, middle, treble, that's the Marshall channel. Treble, middle, bass, that's the Fender channel. Right. And I don't know why they never caught on. They never got big, whatever. And they're still making amps. They're still successful. But the ones that came out in the 90s, those are the ones that I always have to have in the collection.
There's a lot of pro dudes that use them behind the scenes. And
they're good studio amps.
Yeah, well, it's like the K-Tray. I mean, that amp is on a lot of metal records, even though like they will pretend like it's something else. You know, because I have an endorsement. I've talked to people who are like, yeah, we use the K-Tray in the studio a lot. And they're studio animals for that.
Well, one of the things you can't find anymore, they came out with a JBL subwoofer, 212.
Yeah, the low bottom.
And it had a crossover in it. So basically, it would look like a 412 Rivera cabinet, but there was 212s in the top, and then there was a 15-inch JBL sub in the bottom.
Yeah, the bottom.
You'd plug it into the bottom, and that was the crossover, and then you'd plug that into the top, and so you'd have the highs and the mids through the guitar speakers, and then you'd have the chunk basically through the woofer. I mean, and I was talking to guys that were very influential throughout my teen years, and I was telling them, oh man, I got to have one of those low slow bottoms from Rivera, and they're like, all right, hold on a second, Nick. He's like, when you play that by yourself, like in the guitar store, if you buy it and take it home, it's going to sound like the best amp ever because you're all by yourself. When you play it on stage in a band, the frequencies that you're playing the low notes on are going to compete with the bass, and you're not the bass. You're the guitar player. Guitar players are meant to be in that mid range on the foundational part. So he's like, as long as you're going to keep it in your house and play by yourself, it'll be fine. But you're going to get lost. The lows in your guitar are going to get lost in the mix. So if you ever play in a band setting with it, so that talked me off the ledge in terms
all right. So the low bottom thing, like I get what you're saying, and it's true. If you're in a band where the bass has to be really solid in a specific way, like maybe it's not the right thing for you. But that's one of those very specific tools that was like the thing for new metal players that. They like the idea of having the 15-inch, ported cab for doing that stuff. I was talking to Paul Rivera at Gearfest, and I asked him about the Lobatum, and he says we'll still make them. He's like, some people do, call us and ask for things like that, and he's like, it's not a catalog item, but like we've made a few, and he was kind of indicating like, yeah, it wasn't a big seller for us. But for the people that like played in maybe a trio and they needed to cover that territory, who would love it is the Tosin Abasi, because they have no bass player.
Were you talking to senior or junior?
Senior.
Okay. Yeah, I talked to Paul Rivera Jr. on the phone.
Yeah, I've talked to him too.
Yeah, they're great people.
Yeah, dude. I was really kind of upset that I couldn't bring myself to like spend that kind of money to buy one while I was there, because it would have been really cool to buy one and have him sign one. Because like for those of you that don't know, he's a legend. Like he completely saved Fender's amp line from just being destroyed.
Was that Paul Rivera?
Yeah, because he did the 2 series amps in the mid. Actually, probably I think they started in 1982. Like 1982.
He did a Yamaha amp too that was really good.
Yep. And he's done all kinds of mods and stuff to people's stuff over the years, and like I think he worked on 48th Street and all that in New York, and was like really influential with working with different manufacturers, designers, and has an extensive history as an engineer in the industry. But chances are, at some point, you've had your hands on something, if you're into gear, that he's had his stamp on from the engineering standpoint, and that's why I'm like, he's kind of a behind the scenes figure, and so for me, that's a big deal.
The attenuator. I had the Rock Crusher attenuator, and I wouldn't play that knucklehead. Yeah. I wouldn't play the knucklehead without the attenuator.
Yeah, the Rock Crusher is pretty cool.
Yeah,
everything they make is super super loud too. So I see that Jim is now linking things.
I might be pulling the trigger on one of those, depending on what happens here in a couple weeks.
No, you're waiting a year, Jim. 2 years. You're in a year of no gear, aren't you?
Yeah, fucking.
Well,
Except that you've broken it like 5 times already.
I used to play gigs in Green Bay and Milwaukee, and now I'm playing around Detroit a lot. And I was in like other bands than the Kiss tribute. I was doing cover stuff and I was doing original stuff. And a lot of people will come up to me after the show and be like, "Dude, what's that amp?" I'm like, "Oh, it's a Rivera." And they're like, "It sounds amazing." Like, and people won't say, "Oh, how old is your Les Paul?" Or, what kind of pickups do you have? They'll say, "What is your amp?" And that was like the first time I ever kind of looked a little weird. Like, if you got a Marshall Stack or a Fender amp, everybody's like, "Yeah, okay, that's fine." But, if you sound good and they don't recognize what you have back there, now people are like, "I have to have that amp." And I thought that was really cool that you had the familiar tones, but it was something that somebody didn't recognize and they loved your sound.
And they could go way beyond those sounds too.
Yeah.
Tell me what you've heard about the Marshall DSL, the 100 or the JCM 2000 DSL 100s.
I've heard you don't need one, Jim.
I own one, and I'll sell it to you if you want it.
Is that a good thing, or is that?
I thought you had a tip.
Well, it sounds like you play Nickelback and Creed, so it'd be perfect for that.
Those are two bands I don't get.
But no, I guess from what I heard, well, I bought one that wouldn't make any sound, and basically there's a solid state rectifier in it that I had to have replaced. So I replaced that, and I have the other critique that I've heard of them from an engineering standpoint is that the ground is shared between the 16, the 8, and the 4 ohm output jack.
Yep.
So if you ever have it apart that you want to,
separate
separate the grounds. I'm not sure if that's done on mine or not, but mine sounds good. I've got the owner's manual. I've got brand new tubes in it. I can get heavy metal, like the chunk with like Godsmack kind of tones with it, and I can get the classic rock stuff too. They do sound really good clean. So like David was saying, pedal platform. If you want a good pedal platform where you just throw pedals through it, it'll do that just fine. And what I really like about it, and like you said, I've played Rivera Knuckleheads before and all that other stuff. This has a very even sweep on the master volume from 0 to 10.
It
gradually gets louder. So when I'm in my basement, I can turn that sucker up to 4 or 5 and still be good. When I get it up to 10, it's literally at 10. When I have it at 4, it's literally at 4. And that's what I really appreciate about the amp.
Yeah, you don't go to 6 and then the rest is just saturation and compression.
Yeah, because like with a Hot Rod Deluxe, my buddy, we'd play somewhere and the PA guy's like, "Turn down your amp." And he's like, "I'm at 0.4. I can't get it. I can't get it down anymore because it'll cut out."
Right.
At least with this Marshall half stack, you can turn it up to like 4 or 5. And if they want you to turn it down, you can go down to 4 or 3 and still be cool.
Yep. That I used to play with a couple of guys that had them. I was just mentioning that because David and I were talking about them, and that was an amp that a lot of the people I played with the late 90s, early 2000s had, and really got good sounds out of.
Yeah,
I'll bring mine to Sweetwater Gear Fest, and if you want it, you can put an offer in on it. I'll sell it to you. I'm not attached to it.
Jeff Beck used them and actually was like swearing by the amp for a while. I don't know what he's using now, but and they were talking about how like that was the Marshall head he finally settled on, and he'd been using it for like 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, he may still be using the same head, but
and that mod, everybody had talked about how they had modded it. That's probably how they had modded it, was opening it up and changing those grounds out.
Yeah, but
there's a lot of mods you can do to them.
Right, there was some other stuff too. Like, in fact, I've heard of people actually adding tubes to increase gain stages and stuff like that. Which do those clip tubes for? I mean, that may be an amp that Marshall actually has diode clipping as well. So
I'm not sure. But it is a good amp. I just don't gig with it. It's in my basement. I've had it for less than a year, and I fixed it. Looking to flip it.
What do you primarily use in your Ace Frehley thing?
For the Kiss tribute band, I travel with basically 2 amps. Well, they're not really amps. One of them is an amp. It's a Hughes and Kettner Deluxe 20. It's the lunchbox sized. It's the step up from the Tube Meister 18. It's the Deluxe 20, and I can run that through my 4x12 Hughes and Kettner cabinet, or I can run. There's a Hughes and Kettner Redbox DI installed on the back, and I can go right to PA from that. So I've got all my bases covered with that. But in cases where I don't want to carry that head or a cabinet with me, I've got the fly rig, the Tech or the Sansamp fly rig Plexi. And I heard that they just came out with a new version of that has a tuner built in. So I am stoked about that.
Yeah,
I might unload that, and like the fly rig goes right into the PA. Yep. I mean, there's no DI, there's nothing. You just, so for me, it's like wireless. It's a Line 6 G30 that I went on Amazon and bought 2 more transmitters for, so I can switch between my Flying V, my Firebird, and my Iceman. They all have their own wireless transmitter. Just turn it on. I go from the Line 6 G30 into a tuner, and then into the fly rig, and I'm good to go.
Very, very cool. Jim, you're talking about the DSL. If you get a DSL, I'm gonna slap you. You have a freaking Amp 1. What do you need that for?
I don't need the DSL. No, I'm thinking about picking up a second Lone Star so I can have one to gig with.
That is a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, everybody needs to own a Marshall half stack at least once in their life. Let's just admit that. Whether you keep it or not's another story. But to have a Marshall half stack,
I have not.
You've not?
No.
Well, then you haven't lived, man.
I had a Knucklehead 100 that you traded me, and that blew my pant legs sufficiently, and I don't think I really need it anymore.
But it's just the classic. It's just the classic amp, the Marshall half stack. I mean,
yeah, no, it is. I want Jim knows. If I was going to do it, I'd get like. Actually, I did not know this amp existed. Apparently, there's an amp called a JCM 600. Yep. And the JCM 600 is basically like a 70s Marshall. And that was done at the same time as the 800. They rebranded the other amps as the 600. It's a single input. I think it's a master volume. And I was looking at it and I'm like, I saw Johan Segborn on YouTube do a video on him. And you can get him for like $450. And I'm like, that's my amp right there, because that's what I'm after. I like the early like Marshall. I was going to ask you. So one of the problems, and I'm sure you've dealt with this from clients coming to you for custom pickups, but one of the problems I have with almost every guitar I've owned with single coils is the bass frequencies are usually so prominent that they tend to saturate the amp in a very strange way. And you get the warbling speaker and all that stuff when you palm mute. Now, obviously, there's some things you can do technique-wise to prevent that from happening. It is hard. But are there things that can be done on the pickup side to prevent that from taking hold?
Give me an example, like which pickup, which position?
Bridge pickup, for example.
Too much bass?
Yeah, like
really?
when I'm palm muting, there's so much bass that the amp goes whoa, whoa, when I'm, like for the undertones below 400 hertz. And I
haven't seen that before. I haven't had any people express concern over that.
All right. We get to Gear Fest. I'm going to show you. I can make that happen with anything. And it's just that I think as part of it is the style of playing that I engage in. And it's been a problem because if I go to the neck pickup, it's even more exaggerated. And for some reason on most guitars, low E at the 7th fret just ignites it. And I think there's like something harmonic that goes on there. And I've been having the problem more specifically with my Helix now, but that's actually the reason why I got away from using Rivera, because I loved the clean channel, but I could never get the bass control over like 2. Because if I went higher, then I would be getting that flubby thing.
So I've seen Kenny Wayne Shepherd play, and I've had the opportunity to meet him in Double Trouble and that stuff. And he's always using Fender amps, but I took particular attention to his EQ, and he runs his bass on his Fender amps at around 3, and then he runs his middle like around 8, and then he runs his highs around like 4, between 4 and 6.
Yeah.
And he's just using single coil Strat pickups. And when I try that, the bass it's not thumpy, but the bass tones are stratty. Yeah. And I kind of like that, especially for blues music. With my pickups, what I do is I balance them. So the set that you got that you're going to demo is a 1954 DNA, but it has some modern elements to it. So
did you put bar magnets on them?
No bar magnets, but there's a base plate underneath the bridge pickup, very reminiscent of a Telecaster. So you're going to get a very nice round tone out of the bridge pickup, whereas most Strat bridge pickups are very thin. So the base plate underneath the bridge, and this is very Lindy Fralin-esque, but it's just an attempt to kind of round that out and balance it out more. The bridge is going to be the hottest. The mid's going to be the next hottest. I'm using a 42 AUG heavy form bar, same recipe as what they do in the 50s. So even though in the 50s they just wound all the pickups the same, so the middle on this one's reverse round, reverse polarity. So you get the position 2 and 4 in humbucking. So even though it's got 1954 DNA in it, it's a modern wind. The one thing that makes it unique on a 1954 set as opposed to a 60 set is that the pole pieces are slightly bigger in diameter than the pole pieces in the 60s era Strat pickups.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm excited to try those things because I'm a Strat guy. So when you're telling me like, oh, they're going to be like Lindy Fralins, and then you're like, oh, well, they got all these other little nifty appointments that are kind of period correct and that kind of thing. I'm like, this is piquing my interest. I'm very excited to try these, and I'm very sad that I'm going to have to give them away.
Yeah, that's the worst part about this is we have to give them away.
I feel like this is like torture.
I'm like the drug dealer. You can try it for free, but after that, you got to pay.
Yeah. Well, and the fact is, Nick, I will pay.
Oh yeah. Oh, this isn't going to stay without pickups, so I'll be buying a set of pickups for us. And then that thing, I'm definitely looking forward to whatever I can try out.
He's the guy you want to get the tele pickups from, Jim, because ain't nobody got a set of what Nick does in your area. And I'll be honest with you, like I would like to see him do kind of a Barden-esque pickup and see what that would be. You ever done anything like the Joe Bardens with the blade magnet?
I can get the parts. I've never done one before.
I'd be curious if I want to get a Telecaster. It may not happen this year. When I get one, like we'll do a set of Bardens. I'll have you make.
Here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that classic 50s Telecaster spank.
That's no problem. No problem.
That's what I want.
He's like, yeah, that's easy.
Yeah, but see, that's what's going to. If I'm going to compare it, I'm going to have my friend here try it out. He's going to try that against his, Jeff Sens. And so you got these guitars that are going to be up against each other. I want that. I don't want something that's like completely different. Then it's like, well, that it's comparing apples and oranges. And some grapes in there. You know what I mean?
Well, you got to be careful because with tele pickups, they talk about 52 a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, well, in the modern days, 52 means they're Alnico 5 magnets on the E, A, D, and G strings, and then the B and E are Alnico 2s. They call it the 52 set. And I actually like that breakdown a lot for magnets because it sweetens out the high end without making it too tinny. But there's so many other elements that go into it that can offset that. I mean, you could go with an Alnico 3, which is almost a weaker vintage kind of tone to make that neck pickup really sweet. So there's just a lot of options. I just did a set for a guy out in California, and he wanted an Albert Collins kind of tone.
Okay.
And Albert Collins played a humbucker in the neck for his telly. So I'm like, okay, for your Nashville telly, you're going to want to play in position 4 to get that humbucking tone. But it's not going to sound just like Albert Collins because of, the makeup of your guitar. Unless you want to route it out and put a humbucker in there, it's not going to be identical. But, you make it in that spirit and you try and nail that tone and you just kind of go from there.
Yeah. It's funny because like I have 2 sets of your pickups now. I have the set you maybe that's like the Jimmy Page thing in that Chinese Les Paul copy, and then I have a set in that Gibson SG, and that Gibson SG gets so close to being almost Strat pickups in a humbucker form. Like it's still a humbucker, and you can tell, but it's got so much high end clarity that I can get away with actually using it in fuzz pedals and stuff.
That should be close to what Jim's playing too. I mean, when I said a modern PAF, I mean it talks the talk, because on a real PAF, the base plates are long legged, and
Right.
on the sweepstakes pickups, those are short legged. Little stuff like that. Like on the original PAF, the bobbins, the black bobbins, were made out of butyrate. Now they're made out of poly, so the sweepstakes pickups are poly. But the wire, the low ohm value, the original PAFs weren't very hot. So I think that the ones in the sweepstakes were like low sevens.
Yeah.
Maybe the next maybe 7K, the bridge is maybe 7.2, 7.3. And those are very vintage spec. So with all of the modern elements, you're still getting a vintage recipe. And that's kind of why I called it the modern PAF.
So I'm trying to think, trying to verbalize what I'm thinking here. That if people have a particular need for something special, like, and they don't understand the way the wiring and all that stuff works and the magnets, what they need to understand is that all of the pieces, right down to the pickup construction, the ears that actually screw the pickups either to the body or the mounting rings and the bobbins and all that stuff, make an impact on the way the pickup sounds, because number one, it affects things like adjustability and those kinds of things, but also like having pickups direct mounted, obviously it's going to increase your treble. And there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and you help as part of the process for when I call you up or send you an email and I want to order pickups. You ask the questions that maybe people don't consider before they get a set of pickups ordered, so that you can try to make sure that they get what they're looking for and get the best.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm like the Match.com of guitar winding, because I want you to find the one that's for you, and that one that I make for you isn't going to be for anybody else.
Yeah. Well,
So
what I hate is when you go to the store, right, and you're like, and I've done this at Good Time, I've done this at Sam Ash, I've done this at Guitar Center and other places, and you talk to the guy that's at the pickup counter, like, this is what I'm looking for. And then they try to cookie cutter something together. Like, okay, so you're going to put this pickup in the bridge, and then you're going to put this one in the neck. And it always feels like there's like compromises there.
mm-hmm.
And you're the first person that I've ever bought pickups from where I'm like, this is what I want. And I got them, and I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. And no compromises. And I wanted to, share that with our listeners, because if you're on the fence about ordering Great Lakes guitar pickups, like, I don't want this to be a commercial. I want you to understand, like, I'm in the same boat as you guys are. I've bought pickups from Nick twice. I mean, this is not something new to me, and I will buy more from him at some point in the future, provided Nick is still making pickups.
Yeah, the winding pickups thing for me is almost like my way of like paying it forward in music, because I never had a lot of money growing up, and I always wanted awesome pickups. And when I found out what they were, I came from like a family of a lot of do-it-yourselfers. My brother builds custom Harleys. Everybody in my family was musical in some way. My grandpa built birdhouses. Like, I was always around people that like to do things themselves. And when I looked at the guitar pickup, I'm like, I think I can do that. And so many people, like, growing up, were cool to me in the music community, whether it was like at the guitar store or at venues and stuff. I feel like where I fit in that community could be something like providing them like good guitar pickups. And for me, it's not about the profit. It's just something that I really, really like to do. And if I can turn somebody on based on what their preference is, and I can do that at a better price than what you'd find at Guitar Center at a higher quality, then I feel like, I'm restoring my own faith in humanity by paying it forward like that.
Okay, so
I think. Okay, so let's make sure that we don't pick on any given store, because in all honesty, let's face it, Guitar Center is selling bare knuckles, or they're selling Seymour Duncan, or they're selling DiMarzio. They're all selling the same.
All of those brands, you're buying a pickup that is not designed for you. It is designed for someone else. And I want to say, like, the way the marketing community works, they create a profile, and that profile is who they want to sell to.
Correct. And what I wanted to say is this. So there's nothing wrong. We don't want to be putting down people that make that decision. What we're trying to say is, and I think, Nick, I don't want to, I'm going to speak for you. So if I say something, incorrect, please correct me. But what we're talking about here is, let's say you go out to buy a set of pearly gates, Seymour Duncan's pearly gates. There's going to be $300 for a set of pearly gates, right? They're $150 a piece, $300. So if you buy a set of Nick Bongers, the Great Lakes custom pickups, guitar pickups, custom guitar pickups. However, I always
Great
get
Lakes
the name
guitar
wrong.
pickups.
Sorry.
DLGP,
So-
my friend.
Let's say that because we've got a user in the community that's talking about getting a set of pearly gates right now. Okay.
He actually has them.
And yeah, so what would you charge for a set of pearly gates-esque Les Paul replacement pickups?
With a cover, without a cover?
I'd go without, but let's just say with, because I know that's a little more money.
With a cover, maybe $75 for just the one pickup.
Yeah.
So you're looking at around 150 a set. If you want gold, it's going to be more than that. If you don't want a cover, it's going to be less.
Yeah.
It's I'm never going to not tell somebody to buy a Pearly Gates, because if they're a big ZZ Top fan, or if they just love Seymour Duncan's, but a day will come when they find out that the band they just saw has Pearly Gates, and their buddy down the street who just started playing like last week bought Pearly Gates, and they want to know what else is out there.
Right.
Because all that they know of is Pearly Gates. My stuff doesn't have a brand. My stuff doesn't have a model number. I'm not going to give you like the Screaming Strings pickup. I'm going to give you the pickup that you want, and it's not going to. It's like the Rock. It doesn't matter what your name is. If you can hear what you want to hear, it doesn't matter what the name is, and that's what I want to do.
Right, and that's what I wanted to get to. But I wanted to put that in perspective for folks, in that a good set of pickups, even not customized, are going to cost you anywhere between $200 and $300 for a decent set of replacement pickups. So if you're looking at customized pickups that you can talk to the builder, you can say, hey, I want this sound. I want more mid in this frequency. I want this. I want that. You may even not even know. You might just say, hey, listen, I want it to sound, that's that jangly sound that so-and-so got on this record. Kind of looking for that. And I got a Telecaster, and I want to, that type of thing. So I want that for the listeners. I want them to understand that that's something that you don't get when you walk into a place, because no matter how many of those things you say, they've only got so many boxes that they can place you in.
Exactly. If you don't fit the profile,
Right.
they can't help you.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm gonna drop a name here. There's a band in Detroit area called the Gasoline Gypsies, and their lead guitar player's got a blue Pelham blue Gibson Firebird, and I'm not going to give away what's under the hood because he might have entrusted me to secrecy, but he basically came to me with a question. He goes, I heard this guitar player from the 70s had a Firebird, or he had mini humbuckers, or something of that era, but it wasn't what it looked like. It didn't look like that. It actually had this underneath. Can you do that? And I said, well, I don't know. That would be an experiment. I'm like, I cannot guarantee that it will sound like that did, and I can't guarantee that would work. And he said, it doesn't matter. I want to try it. So he was patient enough with the design. He said, this is how I want it designed, and I made it happen. And when he had those pickups put in his guitar, he was floored. He loved it. And people heard him play. And next thing you know, I get emails from other people in Detroit. Hey, I saw the Gasoline Gypsies play. I want what he has in his guitar. And I'm like, wow, that's like something that, big bands like, oh, I saw Metallica, now I want EMGs. But this is happening at a very more local level. That news is like, this band is kind of getting bigger. They're playing like the Greta Van Fleet circuit. The people are asking him what he has in his guitar. And he goes, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups made them for me. What are they called? He goes, just talk to Nick and tell him that you want what I have, because there is no name. They're custom made for me. Like every pickup I make is a fingerprint. They're almost kind of all experiments too, because you base it off of the research, you base it off of what you've done, and like you said, it's just wire and a magnet. So you make your best, you make your educated, scientific wild ass guess about how it's going to turn out. And after having done this for 9 years, the designs get better and better, but it's just a fingerprint, and it's tuned to what you want to hear in your head. So you can't just, like you said, you can't just slap a name on it, put it in a package, and sell it on a shelf. It's something that comes from your preferences.
Now I'm going to throw a name at you that probably never would have hit you as a guitar hero. So you remember the band REO Speedwagon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So their original guitar player passed away. I always loved his tone, and I always loved what's the guy from Foreigner, Mick Jones, his tone, and that Les Paul. Both of them were using Les Pauls for the time. Always been the tone that if I was going to replace those with the classic 57s or those, that would definitely be the direction I was going to go. And for me, it was, you remember Take It on the Run, and you've got that screaming, fast little solo that he does, or for Foreigner, it would definitely be the solo that they do during and it's relatively simple. It's simple stuff, but they have such cool tone. You got that intro to like Long Way From Home. You've got all these classic Les Paul tones that guy got.
Yeah. I think of Boston.
Yeah, I think of Boston too.
But it's so heavily processed.
And
it's not that
so layered.
Yeah.
That's the problem I have if I tried to compare to Boston, it would be like, I want it to sound like 14 Les Pauls compressed through a Rockman.
You guys may like Boston, but man, they are so overplayed around here that like I can't.
Yeah, they're a Midwest band for sure.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What about? Okay, I'll tell you another one. And I bring this solo up all the time, but I love the guitar solo on it. I mean, the sound on it, the tone on it, and it is a Les Paul. Is the Knack, My Sharona. That's a Les Paul
through a Vox.
Yep, through a Vox.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's why it's got so much high end on it.
I hate Vox amps. That sounds so terrible. I don't hate Vox amps. Look, some of my favorite players love Vox amps. I'm a huge Brian May fan, and
that just sounds so bad. I hate but some of my favorite players play Vox.
Yeah, no, but so like you were bringing it up the other day. I'm talking about putting together the video for these pickups, and we were like, well, I at least in my mind, it's like I want to show what they sound like through the three common types of amplifiers. So it's like Fender, Marshall, Vox, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I got the Helix. It's easy enough for me to dial up a tone, but I'm like, who has a Vox sound that I really like?
Brian May.
That I could do with Strat pickups. Okay. And you brought
Crazy
up
little thing called Love. You could do that solo with Vox and
no that was a Telly, wasn't it?
That may have actually been a Strat on their record, because that was around the time where his Red Special was actually stolen. So there was a period right around that time where it was stolen. I know in the video he played a Telecaster.
Yeah.
So
like here's another thing that you need to consider. The Vox amps that you play today are not the Vox amps
not.
And if you play a hand-wired one, the ones that look kind of like a suitcase, they look really stupid. Those are the ones that sound good if you don't want to get a vintage one. But it's the same thing with like the Fender, the Deluxe reverb reissues and all the reissues, like the Blackface. If you've ever heard a real one, they're not the same.
Yeah, they're. I mean, I would say the difference is like 10 to 20%, but the 10 to 20% really matters.
Yeah.
One of those things where you can't get, so like the reason why Fender doesn't make reissues that are accurate to the original is because of things like what the hell is the sticker that's on everything? There are rules and limitations about export now.
The EPA.
And the EPA. And so like what kind of rules they can violate in order to bring back a faithful reissue.
Yeah.
No. So the interesting part is you're talking about Vox. I I got some sounds that I really liked, and I actually didn't target Brian May. What I went for was Rory Gallagher. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see what these clips sound like and what people think of them. But I think I got a pretty close approximation with the Helix and doing some like Rory Gallagher era stuff. But the crazy thing is, all these guys playing Voxes were using treble boosters, range masters.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Like Brian May and him both were using
treble boost.
I'm like, this is nuts. Why would you want to put more treble into that thing?
By the way, that was it was one of the few songs. This is from Wikipedia. Crazy Little Thing Called Love. It was one of the few songs where May did not use his homemade red special, instead preferring the sound of a Fender Telecaster for the guitar solo.
Yeah, that's why I thought Telecaster was.
So I thought that was a Tele.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I have some questions, and they're not necessarily pickup related questions.
So I guess I'll be the one doing that, tracking that solo for the demo.
Yeah, you're gonna have to, Jim.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask. So you're one of the few people that we have on the show. We had a couple others who make guitar related products, right? Things that actually affect people's tone. People get super defensive about whether or not pickups affect tone and all those kinds of things. Like, I'm not asking you to weigh in on that. What I'm asking you to weigh in on is the idea that tone is in the fingers. Like this whole thing that, it's all about who the player is and what they're using doesn't really matter. Comments, thoughts, like share. So I know this is a time bomb question.
Yeah. He just threw a grenade into your.
Yeah. But
there's an easy answer and there's a more complex answer. I'll say for my nephew who's been playing for less than a year, the tone is not in his fingers. He's learning. He can cop styles. If I teach him how to play a bar chord, like play AC/DC, he's going to sound like AC/DC. Right. But it's not the tone that's in his fingers. He's a developing, learning guitar player. On the other end of that extreme, if you give Joe Bonamassa an Epiphone Les Paul, it's going to sound as good as the 59 that he's playing. He's just not going to enjoy it as much.
Okay.
That's the short answer.
I think that answer is. I think it's. Let's unpack that for a minute. So, and I feel like I'm kind of at the point in my playing where I've noticed that like tiny little minutia details make a huge impact. And I'm gonna hold up some things to the camera and I'll describe it to the audience. But this is a Dunlop prime tone triangle pick that I picked up because this is what I normally use. This is a V pick.
Ugh. I tried one, didn't like it.
All right, so this is a medium triangle. They call it a P, or that's what's on the stamped into it anyway. And I'm not committed to V pick at all. In fact, I have a very similar shape here from Gravity Picks, and I'm not seeing it on my desk right now. So the reason why I use these guys is because of the shape, right? Nobody else I have found makes a medium-sized triangle with points.
Fender.
They don't. It's not a triangle though.
They got triangle picks, don't they?
They're big.
They're bigger.
Doritos. These are
Yeah, they're like the Santana size.
Oh, I thought you meant thickness, medium thickness.
Like a chip.
Oh no. These are like 3 millimeters thick, man.
Yeah.
They're just ridiculous. It's like a quarter. And I gotten used to playing a thick pick, so like that's kind of my thing. But the reason why I held up the prime tone was like I thought maybe I could transition to these, but here's the difference. This is rounded.
Yeah.
This is pointed.
Yeah.
I cannot play with these. I cannot.
Isn't that crazy? I'd love to hear you like do a demo where you do the same like not a legato, but a completely picked, no legato line.
Well, and that's the funny thing. Like when I play these, nobody can tell. Like they're like, oh, you're fine. Like there's nothing wrong. But I can feel like I don't see precision in my fingers at all, and it feels just like sloppy. And
that's like I cannot play now without these damn things, right?
Jazz 3.
Jazz 3s. Okay. Yeah. And these are the what's his name signature, Eric Johnson or whatever. And I have some of the Petrucci signatures. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story about my Jazz 3s. These are thick picks, right?
Yeah.
I grip these so hard that literally The ones you can tell which ones I've been using for a while.
Oh, because
I bend them.
Yeah, you bet.
I bend them right in because I play them like this.
So
I push the shit out of these things.
I'll show you.
Nick grabbed it.
I'll show you what I keep in my wallet.
But yeah, I was going to say I keep another one in my wallet. But go ahead.
This is a Jazz 3, and I took the liberty of taking a drill press through it.
I do that too,
and it makes it so much more grippy.
Yep.
It's great. You know, I played with a guy at a blues gig in Detroit. Nice. There's holes in that one too.
Yep.
There was a dude. He wanted to sit in with us, and I'm like, well, I'll just take a break, man. You don't have to sit in with me. You can just take it over. I'll just take a break. And he plugged into my amp, and when he was done, I walked up to the amp, and there was 50 cents on the amp. I'm like, did he tip me or something?
No, he stole your pick.
No, he plays with quarters.
Yeah. I know people.
Picks. And he put a couple quarters on the amp in case he dropped his, but he, just like Brian May made his own picks.
I've done that before too.
Well, Brian May, so he plays, of course he mods it a little bit, but he plays with like a coin from Italy or something.
Sixpence.
Yeah, sixpence.
They actually opened the mint. They opened the mint and they made expenses specifically for him with his face.
For him.
Wow.
Yeah. That because they don't make sixpence anymore as a legal tender. So they had to.
It pays to be the queen's favorite.
Yeah, it does pay to have the queen's queen. But I used to play these all the time.
Me too.
Dunlop
with the powder on them and stuff.
Yeah, with the powder, and then once the powder's gone, gone.
That's what I drill holes in them for.
Yep.
Nice.
So
because I'm cheap.
I started, obviously the different colors.
Yeah, the blue one.
So, I started with this one, went to the blue one, and then I went to the Jazz Dunlops. Now, the reason I still have these around and I still buy them, these are still powder coated. Can't tell in this lighting, but the reason that I keep them around is because for really wide, jangly, like chord stuff, where I'm playing like Crazy Little Thing Called Love, for example, I would use one of these because I like to have a little more, because I don't want to hold it like just tightly. I kind of just jangle it. Well, so it's more this than this. And yet when I switch to the solo, I'll literally throw this
and grab it
up. Pull the other one off. I got that thing on the mic stand. I'll pull the other one. So it goes, throw, grab.
For my Kiss gigs, I've got like Detroit Rock City Kiss tribute picks with a star on one side for Star Child and then the name of the band on the other. So I've learned that when I'm playing Kiss tunes, I'm not using the Jazz 3. I'm using the bigger. It's like a regular Delrin white pick that's like medium heavy. And I throw those out like candy.
Yep.
It's just part of the show. And I've just kind of learned it's like driving manual or driving automatic. For me, like a Jazz 3 is like driving manual, and the bigger Delrin pick is like driving automatic.
Yeah. So, but my point is to get back to what I was originally trying to say, which is that these are really insignificant things, like the shape of a pick. But I mean, this is a deal breaker for me. I literally cannot play over stupid little things. And even like the feel of an amplifier, if it's not spongy enough, I'm like, I feel lost. I feel like I don't connect with it. And it's to the point where it's kind of alarming to me because I'm getting to that point in my life where like I played enough guitar that I have these preferences that are like deep seated.
I think that speaks to what Nick was talking about earlier. If you take a beginner or a relative beginner, beginner to intermediate, a player that's only been playing for a while, hasn't really developed a quote unquote taste for these things. It's just like wine,
you'll play with anything and try to make it work.
And you're going to try to make it work. But at some point, you get into that groove, and that groove is what makes you, and what makes your sound. I'm playing these pentatonic riffs, right, in this book by Tom Kolb, and I'm playing them over and over. There's some I cannot play his way. I just can't do it because I play them like me, and I'm like, I can't play that like that. That doesn't make any sense to me. The way you're voicing that, the way you're phrasing it, doesn't make any sense to me. I'm going to do it like this. And so where he puts a bend, I might do a slide, or where he puts a slide, I might do a bend, or he puts a double stop, I might put it's just the weirdest stuff that even as many times, and I'm doing it to practice sight reading. So I'm trying to force myself to do exactly what's in front of me. And I find myself struggling with that.
Well, David said, the question was, is tone in your fingers? And if one of your hands is holding one of those picks, well, that's your new finger. So you can have a lot of different fingers. Like you said, I've got 2 different picks. Those are 2 different fingers. The tone is going to be in those picks if you're at that level of playing. And if you can hear it, the people in the crowd aren't going to hear it. But if you hear it yourself and that makes you more confident, you're going to play better.
Yeah, it speaks to your your level of confidence. And okay, let's go from the pick to the strings. Now we're at the strings. Ever since I've switched to D'Addario NYXLs, I just don't feel comfortable playing under string. That's cool.
I'm the same way. Like I like DRs, and I was that way about DRs before. And when I switched to NYXLs, like I wanted to puke for the first 6 weeks or something. I had them, and then once I went through a couple sets, I was like, okay, now I can do this, and everything worked. But
I used to love DRs.
Yep.
They got really inconsistent for me, which is why I kind of backed out. So
I just got a set of String Joy.
Okay.
And I did a custom set of String Joy strings, and they're basically somebody asked Joe Bonamassa what his set was, and it was like 11 through 5/2, but the B string and I think the D string was different than what would come on a normal 11 through 5/2 set. So I ordered kind of what he used, even though my tuning is a D standard for the Kiss tribute, and I put it on my Flying V with my pickups in it, and I liked String Joy pickups a lot better than Dunlop pickups. I liked it better than the D'Addario pickups. They felt better.
You mean strings?
Yeah, that's what I'm sorry. I said pickup. My brain is just
His brain is fried, and clearly he wants to make us more pickups.
Yeah. So the String Joy better than Dunlop, better than DR, better than D'Addario. For me, Ernie ball strings are kind of ubiquitous. They're just like breathing air to me. They're like water. They're just kind of everywhere. So they're kind of a standard. But the String Joy feels like it's a level above in terms of feel and the springiness, the bendiness of it. I just really liked them.
So you see up there, it says String Joy, and then it says NYXL the rest of the way.
All right. I'm gonna put the nail in the coffin. This is something we can talk about. I'm gonna put the nail in the coffin on the string challenge at this point.
Yeah.
I just don't want to take the time to edit the clips. If you guys want the clips, I'll send you the Logic file. I'll post it somewhere. Somebody in the group asked me, I'll do it. If somebody wants to organize them, you're more than welcome to.
What did you find? What was your results?
All right. So we shot out 5 strings.
Yes.
Ernie balls were shit. Big surprise. I couldn't stand them.
They were the low end Ernie balls. But
I could not wait to get them off the guitar.
What guitar did you use, first of all?
Okay, so everything was done on my USA G&L S500, which is hanging right next to me that you cannot see.
And I only ask because I have different preferences for Gibson and Fender-esque guitars.
And I could totally see that. And I could see Ernie balls working better on shorter scales and things like that. So I shot out NYXLs. We did Ernie ball. We did String Joy. We did Gabriel Tenorio custom strings. And since we're I'll just do the reveal right now. From best, in my opinion, to worst, I probably would say NYXLs and String Joys were like neck and neck. I would say the Ernie balls were at the bottom of the crop. The Gabriel Tenorio custom strings did basically nothing for me, and wore out fast, which is something that a lot of people had said, like, oh no, they stay good forever. What was the other? Did we do another set, Jim?
No.
Ernie ball? No, I think it was just 4. I think it was those 4.
It was 4. We were going to do 3.
We were going to do 3. We were going to look at a super high-end set. So the Gabriel Tenorio custom strings, if you didn't know, they're like handmade strings, Nick. The guy literally hand winds them without a machine. He does it in between his fingers. And he actually makes a lot of like nylon strings and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
For people specifically for people who play like, the mariachi band,
and
like that.
yeah,
And so I kind of really wanted to like his product. I know Gabriel Tenorio from Facebook groups and stuff, like, and I don't think it's worth the $25 a set that he charges. I would rather go to Stringjoy and get 2 sets.
Yeah. Well, now you have to do that with the acoustic strings.
Yeah,
because I'll throw this out there.
Acoustic strings are a big deal. Yeah.
I used to use Elixir acoustic strings because they last longer, and I'm really lazy about changing acoustic strings.
Right.
But then I bought Cleartone brand strings, and those things are awesome. They don't feel like they're coated strings. They last a long time, and they sound like regular phosphor bronze strings. So I would highly recommend Cleartone acoustic strings.
Yeah, if I had a decent acoustic guitar, I would definitely be down to do that challenge. But I'm so much of an electric player that the only acoustic I have is like a $300 Ibanez acoustic. It's probably worth like $80 now.
I was one of the quote unquote beta testers for Elixirs way back.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't a big deal. Believe me, it wasn't because I was a great player. It was just I got randomly picked out of a bunch of people. Anyway, so I was playing a lot of acoustic gigs. I was playing 3 to 4 nights a week, acoustic gigs, and these little places in upstate New York. And anyway, Elixirs for me, they wore out fast. I had that plastic was flying all over the place. I hated them. Hated them. My friend was playing them on a Martin D18. I was playing them on a Takamine, Garth Brooks signature Takamine, and I just wasn't impressed. I was okay with them, but I wasn't impressed. Now I went through just recently. I went through the same thing with the Paradigms. I broke 2 Paradigm strings. I don't break strings. I broke Paradigm strings. A friend of mine, same thing. Now we were both using Les Pauls. Had the same problem. Now, when it comes to the string challenge, I have almost exactly the same feel that David had with his, which we did this so blind, we didn't even tell each other which strings we were using when. So I started this out with Stringjoy, then I went to NYXLs, then I went to the Gabriel Tonello, I never say it right. And then the GTs, and then I went to the Ernie Balls. So what I found was I liked the Stringjoys. I really liked them. And I talked to a couple of people, and they said maybe I should give them a call because I go through a lot of strings. I don't know if you see how many packs are up there, but that's just for tomorrow. I go through maybe a dozen packs of strings. A quarter, maybe more. So I'm throwing out a lot of metal. And I just put brand new strings on that one. That one's got an NYXLs on it. So I'll go through strings constantly. There's 2 things that have to happen for me. Number one is they have to be good, and number one, they have to have a price point that I can afford to buy as many as I do up front. So because I'll buy 20 packs of strings. So I'm buying a box or 2 at a time. So when I go to buy strings, I want them to be comfortable, and I want them to last, and I want them to have the tone I like. Stringjoy and NYXLs were the only 2 of those sets that I said, okay, that's worth the price, and it's worth the effort. And
how long do you want them to last?
Me?
Yeah.
I only expect 2 to 3 weeks out of them. I have to have the tone for 2 to 3 weeks. But remember, I'll play 4 to 6 hours some days. And if I've got a gig, I do a 4-hour gig. So you're talking in 2 weeks, they're getting what? That's 6. Let's say the shortest. Let's say 4 times 2 weeks and 7 days a week. So, and it's not because the guitar string is losing tone. It's because I start feeling that change in the string.
Yeah.
Have you ever played the
strings?
Have you ever played the Kurt Mangan strings?
No.
You know what those are?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never played those either, but they seem to come up a bit on the interwebs.
Yeah.
All right. So there's another company that I've heard of before, and I don't think they're around anymore. I think they're defunct. There was a guy who writes for Vintage Guitar Magazine, and he had a string company called Snake Oil Strings, and they were like another $22 set string, and of course they were the same nickel recipe that was used in the famous guitar players' guitars. He claimed that he was listening to vinyl and he could hear the differences in guitar on vinyl, and I'm like, I don't know what kind of vinyl. Because I'll be honest with you, and this is why I want to talk about the string challenge. We A/B tested these, we recorded it. Jim, I don't know how your sample sounded, but you literally could not hear a difference on most.
Nope. Most of them I couldn't hear a single difference. It was all about feel. It really was.
The only difference I had is like the NYXLs and the string joys are really bright.
Yep.
Everything else was kind of like medium. When they wore out, they were slightly darker. But it was so inconsequential that I was almost just kind of taken aback, because I used DRs years ago, and I'd done the same test. My wife can attest to this because she heard the samples. I did the same test with 3 different brands or 3 different types of DRs, and I was using the nickel and the regular, tight fit, and then their pure blues or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they were drastically different. And I swore off playing like the old nickel strings.
Remember
I was
Blue
like, there's
Steel?
no way I'll never do it again.
Yeah. Diodario Blue Steel.
Yeah, I remember Diodario.
Cryogenically frozen.
Cryogenically created.
Megadeth.
It was Terminator was playing these.
I about just spit my water out my nose because of the Megadeth comment.
Dave Mustaine plays Blue Voodoo Crate Amps and Blue Steel by Dean Markley.
You know what? He's one of those guys that he would totally endorse anything you put in his hands. But I could see David Mustaine doing an ad for Pepsi. Like, that would not surprise me one bit. He's an incredibly talented player, but he's obviously got his personal demons. But I just laugh because he does not get the credit he deserves as a guitar player.
I read his autobiography, and he was going to do guitar for a commercial, and he sat down with the producer and everything, and they said, well, we're going to play something that we want you to play in kind of in the style of. And they turned on Enter Sandman, and he just stood up and walked out.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Like, no idea.
No. He's talking about being trolled. Holy shit!
Yeah. It's in his book. Swear to God, it happened.
So he's the reason, because I was learning P-cells this week, and I was just like kind of going through all and it's not the guitar playing. Like, anybody can play P-cells, but it's the way it's layered. And when you start realizing how much of that is actually Dave Mustaine, and not
Marty Friedman.
Was it Marty Friedman or Chris Poland?
Not Friedman. That was Chris Poland.
Yeah.
And I just kind of sat there and shook my head. I was like, I know Chris is a great guitar player, but holy crap! Like, all the layering and like the very, because I always thought like, oh well, it's like Metallica, where Kirk Hammett plays all the solos. It's not like that in Megadeth. No. And it's really kind of surprising that it's not that way. So that's why that's all I was getting at. He's a lot more talented.
He has a wacky way of moving his chords too.
Oh yeah. He does hammer-ons and stuff.
Yeah.
They're called like spider bar chords or something.
Spider bar chords that he uses, where he'll use his ring pinky and then use his middle his index ring and then middle pinky, and so he'll do that spider thing. It's the weirdest freaking. It's just incredible, and it makes for speed of moving. I had a guy that was showing me that style of playing back, probably 12 years ago, 15 years ago. Anyway, he was a real good player, real fast. I said, how the hell do you move around your power chords like that? And he goes, oh, Dave Mustaine style. I said, Dave Mustaine, what are you talking about? And he says, he's got that spider thing. That's what he called it, the spider chord. And when he played it, I was like, wow, that is fucking fast. I mean, just.
The first time I learned how he did, how he puts together his chord structures. So he's moving a half step, it's a hammer-on. He literally hammers on the whole chord. So his index and ring for everything. His power chords are always 2 notes, and then he'll hammer on a whole chord. And he can do it just interchangeably, like every other note would be a different chord. And then of course he can swap to different strings too, which makes it even worse, which is what you're talking about, the spider.
Yeah, the spider thing.
But I saw him do it the first time and I went, this guy has too much time on his hands. Because like I would just use it lateral motion. Even if it look like I'm jerking off the guitar, it's lateral motion.
Look like. So
fuck you.
Yeah, because he is incredible player. Okay, so we move from strings, and now we move to the guitar itself. We move into the guitar, and we've really only touched on so small of a level of tone. I think that what people forget is it's not that tone is in your fingers; it's your style is in your fingers. I think I've spoken to that before. This is my take on it: is that when you play and you do things, we all react. Like you were talking about, somebody might not hear the difference in you using one pick or another.
Yeah,
but feel
I do.
It. You feel it,
and because if your confidence is shook at all, it affects you as a player, and then the performance sucks, and then that's how I know.
I've done it to myself so many times. I gotten in my head, and I go, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to do this. Not going to be able to do it, and I can't do it."
I remember like my first gig ever when I was in college, and we're going to this place, and I checked like 5,000 times to make sure I had the pick that I rehearsed with. You know, like I have to have that pick, and if I don't have that pick, I'm gonna have to borrow a pick, and like the gig's just not gonna go off right unless I have my pick. You know, like it was important to me. It wasn't almost like a superstition.
Yeah,
unless I have my pick, it's not gonna go off right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a baseball player that isn't wearing the right set of socks.
It's the reason when I go into an open mic that I'm like bewildered, because I'm like, I'm plugging into somebody else's amp. Like, what is this going to be like?
But that's what some of the pros will talk about when they're like, when they feel like their sound has gotten, has reached this thing, this plateau. They'll say, okay, I purposely went in and I used this crappy guitar through this shitty amp in this, I forced them to put a monkey on my back and feed them sandwiches over my head while I was doing, because I wanted to be thrown off my game, because I wanted that. I don't know. What do you guys think of that? I mean, is that something that for you, is that what you do to yourself? Like some people say, change the tuning on guitar. I'm like, I'm going to change the tuning on my guitar. I don't want to be thrown off that much.
The only reason why I own a guitar other than a Les Paul is because I want to have different challenges, different tones. Like I love beating on a Fender Strat every now and then, but I like to finesse a Les Paul every now and then.
Too. I've seen some clips.
It's one of those things. But go back to your point with recording artists. Do you guys like Stone Temple Pilots?
Yeah.
The DeLeo brothers, right? When they recorded Tiny Music from the Vatican Gift Shop, was it Robert? Who's the guitar player? Robert or Dean?
I don't remember.
Either way, he has this very exquisite collection of vintage Dan Electro and K guitars. And he prided himself while recording that Tiny Music, the one with a Bing Bang Baby on it and everything, Lady Picture Show and Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart. He recorded that entire album, no humbuckers and no Fender single coils. It was all lipstick tubes and like weird Sears and Roebuck pickups. And he would pull off a solo and the producer would be like, all right, now double it. He's like, you want me to double that solo? And like, he would have to double it. And he's playing these old like bullhorn Dan Electro guitars and the old like D3s or whatever, like what Jimmy Page kind of played, that Dan Electro, and the one that kind of looks like a Les Paul, but they're like lipstick tube pickups, just really weird stuff. And the album sounded amazing. But that's how he chanted the short scale student grade, mass produced, Chicago area, Sears and Roebuck, mass production, American made, vintage.
I'm in Chicago and I have to laugh because so many of those guitars came from this area because of the Sears and Roebuck connection, all that. Valco was here. And like you never see Valcos in like on Craigslist or anything. I mean, you see them in Chicago music exchange places like that, but a lot of their guitars don't come from this area. So you just kind of run into them like every once in a while, but I'm just shocked that there are not more of them here than there are.
Living in Michigan, I was hoping the same for the Kalamazoo Gibson connection, but
really,
I don't see very many.
Yeah. He's like, hey, that's the whole reason he moved there. He's
exactly.
Like, he's like, all right.
So it was Dean. I always remembered Dean because of Dean Guitars. His name was Dean, but
Dean DeLeo.
Yep, DeLeo.
Let's not talk about Dean Zielinski while we're at it. Let's just avoid that.
No.
Dean Zielinski.
He's
Dean's
here.
another guy that was accused of beating his wife and stuff
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
in a divorce claim, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, so now we've got the guitar, we got the pickups. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about the pickups, but there's something that goes with the pickups that a lot of people don't think about, and that's the rest of the electronics. And I'm not getting too much into the wiring. Yeah, you should have decent wiring.
They don't mean shit. No, I'm kidding.
Wiring, but pots make a difference.
Yeah,
I'm talking about it.
Pots and in Gibson's, what era wiring you have.
Right.
I mean, there's a huge between 50s wiring and modern Gibson wiring.
But you know what? I've heard studies, and I've not read them. I'd like to read them about the capacitors. How oil and paper capacitors in a guitar is just bullshit posturing.
I suspect that is.
A value is a value, whether it's the green cap or the orange cap or the paper and oil cap. Or the value is what matters and nothing else.
Yeah, I
could ask that question because my daughter, that's what she does for a living. She builds capacitors, and so she works with capacitor engineers on a daily basis. So I could ask that question about those because
you've never asked her.
No, I never thought.
All these years you've known her, and you've never asked her about capacitor, the quality.
Well, my daughter, but she's only I've known her since
she's been there for a few years.
I know her when she was created.
Oh my God, you were there for that?
Yeah, I hope so. My wife's got some explaining to do, but no, I never thought about it. I have so many engineers at the other end of my rope where I can ask them about that type of thing. Because again, that's that age-old question is, pots are pots, or are they? And are capacitors, or are they? I know that when I can tell you this, that even in capacitors outside of the musical industry, okay, the finest, most minutial details. We went down to where we used electron microscopes to look at the carbon that we used. That's how specific it is, and that's how perfect it has to be for certain applications. So I'm not actually, I wouldn't actually be surprised to have an engineer tell me, you're right, that the oil, the paper, all the other stuff makes a huge difference. I wouldn't be surprised at all, because it also comes down to this. There's a lot of environmental factors that come into play when it comes to capacitors. A lot of environmental factors. You'd be surprised. I was shocked.
Yeah, like heat and all that.
But on the flip side of that, the guitar is such a flawed instrument.
Oh yeah.
Tuning in terms of fretting, intonation. So the impact of a capacitor on a guitar design that's already inherently flawed might not have that same impact.
I don't know whether it would be an audible thing though. Like, we tend to think like a cap being like a filter, where in this idea that it filters certain frequencies out of the guitar, and usually that's, I mean, when you're talking about tone, the tone cap, it's that kind of stuff. That's basically what you're doing. But I would be hesitant to think that the different styles of capacitor would have like different filtering properties. Meaning, like one has a steeper Q than the other in terms of like a board EQ, where you have a parametric with Q setting. Like, oh well, the paper and oil has a higher Q. Like I doubt it's something like that. I would think it would be more something like dynamics, where there's more leakage from a paper and oil cap versus. I don't know. I'm just positing a theory that's.
Well, I mean, all right. So obviously, the purpose of a capacitor is what?
It's to hold
taper off the high end.
Yeah.
Taper off the high end.
In the guitar circuit, yes.
Right. So if you're looking at it that way, you're going to have to figure out. So is it like this, or is it like this, or is it and is it at this point of the wave, or is it at this point of the wave, or this point of the wave? That's the only thing I could think that maybe. And I know those old caps were dirt. When I say dirty, the outputs were dirty, and so they weren't like a real clean wave. It was really kind of a lot of harmonics on it. I think that's where the whole thing falls apart when you start talking about stuff like people will say, well, this is just as good as that or whatever, because you start to talk about the fact that guitar is all about overtone. You said yourself when you were talking about the pickup things, I'm hearing that overtone that wasn't, here or there. So it's all about overtone. And so now we get to the cables. That is the biggest piece of snake oil to me.
And you make cables, though, Nick.
I will say no. I will disagree with you there, Jim.
Now, see, there you go. All right.
All right.
And I disagree with Jim, too, because I'm going to be honest with you. Jim buys the shittiest cables known to man, and his logic behind it is just hilarious. You buy the bargain basement cables that you can get.
For practicing, of course. They're hanging right there.
Oh, he's like for practicing. Bullshit.
No, I have for use. This is a Curlin Premium. Oh, I would think $35 for a
$35 for a cable is not much.
Yeah, it's not much, but it's better than the $8
$5 XLR
gear.
So here's a like rock and roll history. Jimi Hendrix, Stratocaster, Marshall Stack, Curly Q, guitar cord.
Yep.
Rory Gallagher, Vox amp, super bright, Stratocaster,
Yep.
Curly Q. Those Curly Q guitar cords are like, they say that they're like 50 feet, but they're really only like 10 or 12 feet because of all the coils.
Yep.
What those coils do is it tapers off the high end. So you can take a single coil guitar with a Curly Q cord and put it through a bright amp, and it's suddenly not as bright. There's another pickup winder named Dylan, and Dylan does video podcasting a lot, and Dylan Merkel, I think his name is. But he makes guitar cable just like I do, and he buys them in like a 500-foot roll of guitar cable.
Yeah.
And as a test, what he did was he soldered a 1/4-inch plug to both sides, and he plugged it in. And then he took like a 20-foot cable and plugged it in. And the 500-foot guitar cable sounded like his guitar with the tone on 0. And then the 20-foot cable sounded like his guitar on 10, or with the tone on 10. So the longer the cable, the more high-end taper. So it makes sense that if you're in the studio and you want a very pristine sound, to use the shortest cable possible.
Yep.
I also wager that the amount of metal or the amount of wire inside the guitar cable is just going to give you better tone. Like if you're going to drink a milkshake through a coffee straw, you're going to have a really hard time doing it. But if you're going to drink it with like a straw from 7-Eleven, it's going to be a lot easier to drink that milkshake. So having a better pipe to transmit that is always going to give you a better sound.
Now I'm not saying I'm an electrical engineer. Okay, I'm not, because I don't have my EE. But I do have a lot of electrical background, waveguide, radio frequencies, wire, all kinds of stuff. And I know that when it comes to certain cable, when it comes to certain gauges, I talk standing waves with the best of them all day long. Okay. I understand that, that's why you can have a 20-foot dipole antenna that's only this big. It's actually, if you had all the stuff, that's why it's effectively this, 20 feet, so on and so forth. When it comes to the cable, and it's always this comes back to what I was talking about. If I was going to do a studio thing, like I have certain cables here at home, like this one right here, this braided current cable. This isn't super expensive. It's also not super cheap. I buy certain cables for recording purposes because those are the ones that I want a better thing with. I have certain cables that are coiled up and they sit in a gig bag and they go nowhere else because they go to the gig and they come home. Because I also know that there are environmental factors that can affect the cable, and so on and so forth. So I get that. I'm just saying that you're not going to convince me that there is directional cable unless you somehow build a capacitance into the cable. So, or I should say, inductance into the cable so that capacitance. Because now you've built it in a capacitor. It's going to work well this way, work like shit this way. That's the way a capacitor works.
When I make guitar cables, there's print that says instrument cable, and the words instrument cable go in a direction. And from what I've heard with other things of cable, that the direction of the print is the direction of the signal. So I make a guitar cable with Neutrik silent plugs, like those red, they're like $15 plugs. And when you unplug, they're really great for open mics. When you unplug the guitar, it doesn't make the amp crackle or anything. So I put that on the eye and instrument side, and then I put a regular plug at the end. So it follows the right direction of the reading and the quote unquote direction of the signal. Even though you can hook it up backwards, like you're saying, and it'll work, and to most ears it'll sound just fine, there are people that claim that they can hear a difference if they plug a guitar cable in backwards. I cannot, but for sake of building cables, I like to do it in the quote unquote proper direction.
Now, this would not be snake oil. I could believe that if over time, if you're using the cable in the same direction all the time, it would start to
be polarized.
Polarized. And I could believe would start to, okay, now I should start looking at it directionally because it's always going to be in that direction.
Well, now we're getting down the rabbit hole, right? Because honestly, like, if you can't hear a difference, I mean, I don't think about which way I'm plugging my cables in. And I have been pretty, like, picky with this kind of shit before. I have to imagine that we're splitting hairs at this point and worrying about things that really are just infinitesimal. We talked about this on the show before, this idea that we as guitar players tend to be the one person in the band that everybody looks at and they're like, what are you worried about?
Yeah, you are a nutcase.
What are you obsessing over? Like, you know, we're sitting there talking about brands of strings and stuff, and they're like, just put some strings on it. Like, that was the problem. Or as you're talking about cables, you think keyboard players give a shit about what cable they're plugging into their keyboard? Mm-hmm. I've never heard them, like, other than reliability, then to be like, why would you buy a $500 cable? Like, and we do. There are guitar players that buy $200 cables.
Yeah,
no, that's not necessary. But at the same time, like I kind of come from sports. So in sports, you say like how you practice is how you play, and they also say like look good, play good.
Right.
And a game is won or lost before it's even played. So I translate a lot of that sporting mentality into guitar playing. And if I can practice and if I can concentrate on the little details, those are things that I feel are going to put me ahead of other guitar players. And if that means putting all of my instrument cable in the proper reading direction, including my patch cables and the cable that connects my head to the extension cabinet with speaker cable going in the same direction, then it's another brick in my foundation to build a confident guitar tone. Even though it has no significance whatsoever, I might look at another guitar player and I'm like, I wonder if he's doing that. Even though it doesn't matter, it's something that I feel confident in doing because I'm looking at my details. And I agree, a lot of, especially bass players, drummers, they're not very detail oriented, but maybe it's my anal retentiveness or my competitiveness or whatever. But, I like to, if there's something that can be massaged or polished or whatever, like I want to try it.
Sure. I could totally see like the whole, like, because I was doing the Euro no gear thing. I've obviously failed. But like going through that,
not as badly as I did.
Oh yeah, I did. Going through that procedure and looking at what you're doing and kind of like backing off and being like, okay, I have only these 5 items to work with. How do I get the absolute most out of the 5 items I have? And that I get. Like, you're not turd polishing at that point. You're making the most of what you have.
No. And I do know that when I practice, like, okay, so I tend to use the same practice cables when I practice because the 90-degree end goes on the guitar and the straight end goes into the amp. So I always get the right way because the two ends are completely different. Now, of course, if I had a Fender, I'd be all fuckered up because then, or at least a Strat, because I'd have to stick that 90-degree in there and it doesn't work.
I think you can make it work. I use my 90-degree plug on my.
All right, so I want to throw a store under the bus right now.
Yeah.
So Guitar Center, bless their heart. They have Mogami Gold Series instrument cable. 3 feet, so 36 inches.
Yes.
For $40.
Yep.
I
You
can
can buy Mogami Gold instrument cable for like that length for like $3.
and that's exactly what I do. And the plugs on them are like $3 or $4 a piece. So I could sell you the $40 cable for like 12 or $15. I usually charge. I'm not sure what I'm paying per foot, but I usually charge per foot. And then depending on how anal retentive you are about plugs, if you want a Neutrik plug or if you want a GLS plug, I just mark it up a little bit for my time, but it's going to be the cheapest cable that you ever get, and it's going to be just as good as what you could find in a store. So, I mean, they charge so much just for the name, like Mogami. It's like the Harley Davidson of guitar cables, so they're going to charge you a premium price. I'm not going to do that.
I like Gotham cable myself.
Yeah, I've got like 3 different kinds. There's a Detroit guitar cable that I sell called My Star Sound. That's really good. Brett Michaels uses it, and I think a metal band I forget which metal band uses it. But
well, if Brett Michaels uses it, I'm in.
Yeah.
But does Chad Kroger use it? That's the question. Because
No.
if Chad Kroger doesn't use
Does
it,
that even matter, Jim? No.
Yeah, so I do Gotham. I do Gotham wire, and I do Mogami wire, and then I do the 4-star wire, which is the My Star Sound stuff. And I did a YouTube video for the 4-star wire, and the company actually noticed me and sent me a thank you for comparing them to Mogami. And they said, how can we thank you? And I said, well, send me some cables to test. And they sent me a couple cables to test. So they're pretty cool.
Very cool.
Gotham, because I'm a Batman fan, I'd probably.
That's part of the reason why I like it, honestly.
It's
no,
cool.
Actually, I have this sinusoid cable, and they don't sponsor our show or anything, and we don't do sponsorship, but I have this guy, and this is Gotham cable, and I actually ordered this specifically for that SG because like the most trouble I could possibly get out of it.
Now that has a 90-degree silent plug on it, right?
Yep.
Does the collar stick?
No, it does not.
Really?
Nope.
Because I've had 2 of those 90-degree angle Neutrik silent plugs, and the cutoff is like a little magnetic collar. And whenever I use it, it doesn't pop back out. It stays stuck in. And
Really?
I don't like to sell those because of it.
Yeah, these work great. I don't know whether they had like a bad batch or, the one thing I don't like about the silent plug is that it seems like at certain guitars, if it's not in the, like, in a certain way, if you bump the cable, it'll make a noise. It's really weird. It's almost like the cable's microphonic.
So for one of the months, and this is kind of a profiting for the future, but I would like to do a monthly sweepstake instead of doing pickups to do some of my cables.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, we're down.
Great.
I think that's easier to shoot out for us too, honestly.
Yeah.
Very easy. Then I'll get a set of musicians gear because those are super cheap. Get a set of musicians gear cables.
If you don't have some already?
No.
Yeah.
I don't.
Pull out the drawer.
Some of the mid cables that I've got, the Fender cables I have, and then the
So I have some Spectraflex cables. Have you ever used them, Nick?
I used them back in the 90s, but I can order TechFlex, and I can put TechFlex around Mogami. I can put it around the Gotham stuff. And I like to do that, actually.
Anybody can get TechFlex. In fact, I ordered some. But I was asking because I've used some of their stuff before, and they're local. I don't know if you've ever seen them. I think they're here in Illinois somewhere.
I remember. So you talked about the coily cable. I remember growing up, coily cable was the thing. So I started playing in the late 60s, and I was playing more in the 70s, a lot more. And it's funny because you mentioned that because it brought me back to my first few guitar cables, and I fucking hated those things. So there's 2 things I learned about the coily cables. Number 1, they're a pain in the dick. But number 2, and more importantly, was the trick to take the cable, run it once around my strap, then into the guitar, so that the cable wouldn't pull out of the guitar. And then the second one was back at the amp, bring it through the handle of the amp.
Yeah.
I do that anyway for all my stuff. I do that anyway.
Yeah, even for modern cables, I do that because if you walk too far.
For
the 90s,
the guitar end, I still do that because that's weight relief. But at the amp end, I just plop the stuff in.
So back in the 90s, you couldn't get a coily guitar cable to save your life unless you went to Radio Shack.
Now,
So
bullet cable.
I went to Radio Shack and
Yeah,
I paid $6.95 for a 12-foot curly Q guitar cable with plastic end plugs on them. That was really only it was only a 3-foot cable, but they claimed it was 12 feet. And so I haven't used that in a long time. But my brother just gave me a curly Q cable. It's like a GLS. It's really thick and it sounds really good. I use it with my Fendery stuff, and
Bullet Cable makes them now, so you can go to bulletcable.com and buy them.
Fender's put some out.
Fenders are bad. The cool coils or whatever. Ugh,
I haven't bought any. I'm just saying. I have somewhere in a box out in my garage. I have some of the old curly cables, like from back when I was playing the Who and stuff like that. Those things were a pain in the ass. I always thought I was going to pull my amp over.
I'm pretty sure Townsend actually did.
I'm sure he did.
David, those bullet cables have like bullet plugs on them, right? Aren't they like really heavy plugs?
Yeah, I think so.
Like if your input jack isn't set up very tight, I've heard of those falling out.
I believe it.
Because the plugs are just so heavy.
Yeah, they look like they're beefy as hell.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. I like for the cheap cables, the Dario Planet Waves.
That's what I've got.
American Stage, because they have that plug that actually like uses the jack to hold it in place. Yep. And I've had zero problems. I love those cables. I've been buying them and put them in snakes and stuff. I do want to get some of your cables though. I think I talked to you about it at one point. Yeah, I need to build like a practice snake or something for the house here. At some point, I'll have you dig this set.
So I'm going to go into why I haven't put a lot of money into cable when it comes to me, because I just have a bunch of I have a bunch of D'Addario, our Planet Waves. Anyway, the reason that I haven't put a lot of money into it is because everything gets done, everything sounds great. Mic it up and then stick it into a snake. Then it runs off to somebody over another set of cables, over another, and it becomes sound that they're putting through the main boxes anyway. So really, the only person getting the gratification of the tone, and we go back to what we talked about earlier, is me. Now, yes, I'm the one getting feedback from that loop. That's a feedback loop between my ears and my amp.
And the guitar and the amp too.
I've had now. I don't know if this has ever happened to you because you've been on bigger stages, Nick, as well. I've had times where the monitoring setup by whether we had a sound person that wasn't doing their job or whatever was so bad I could not hear my guitar if I went to certain places on the stage.
Oh yeah, that's more often than not.
Yeah.
So I'll be standing there playing from memory. I have no idea.
Been there, man.
Yep, I just wondered it. So that feedback loop is not just it's not just like fizzled, it's broken. And you're just like looking at the person next to you going, okay, I can keep rhythm with this kick drum that I hear and the snare in my head, and I'll keep playing to that.
Yeah, and that's where like the Kiss gigs, I don't need to have boutique tone to play a Kiss gig. Like I can show up with my Sans amp fly rig and go straight to PA, because then, like you said, it goes into a snake, it goes into the PA, comes through the monitor, comes through the mains. I can play those songs on autopilot. I've been playing them since I was 12, so I can get away with not hearing myself. Yep. And it's not about that boutique tone. It's about the entertainment. It's a show. So it takes a lot of that equation out. But for like a blues gig or an originals gig where the sound's important to you, I dig what you're saying about how it gets mic'd and it goes through a snake that's not even yours and stuff. But if I don't really think about it that way. I just like to, it's that feel thing. What comes out of your guitar amp speakers goes to your ears first, because you're standing right in front of your own amp. And if everybody else feels it, even though they don't hear it, I think part of your body language and part of your, I don't know, like maybe your essence on stage is fueled by what you can feel. And if nobody else feels it, they might, visually feel it. Or, if you're making the band sound better because of how you feel that you're playing, it's going to communicate to them in another way other than what's coming through the mains.
That's it. You make an excellent point, and it comes right back to what we talked about before. It's the right tool for the right job. You know, I don't, I'm not in a position right now where making the tone, it's not about me. It is about the band, and it is about playing as close to what I can do for the quote unquote record or the original recording. Get a tone somewhere in there that would sound like if you had stuck the record on and you were playing it over the loudspeaker, kind of. And so the little things that can make it me, my choice of phrasing, my use of different ways of playing, and I've spoken about that before. Um, ways of phrasing and voicing certain things certainly come from me, but I have to make sure that when I'm playing it, and I know it sounds ridiculous. I'm playing Franz Ferdinand, "Take Me Out," which I know you're like, why? that's like because. And so when I'm playing that, I've got to make sure that when you hear it, it's got that, Paramore. Okay, I'm playing Paramore. Who plays Paramore other than Paramore, right? And so you got to say, okay, I'm going to do it like that. But I've got to go from Paramore to No Doubt to Franz Ferdinand to whoever.
Yeah.
And those are things that I have to have tools.
It's a kaleidoscope.
Right. It's a completely different thing. One minute I'm blue, the next minute I'm orange, the next minute I'm red, the next minute I'm greenish purple.
Well, there's Carl Verheyen was interviewed once, and he said, he was, Carl Verheyen, it's kind of a virtuoso. He was commissioned to play a song in a studio, and the people who commissioned him had a specific guitar they wanted him to play. It's like a Trini Lopez or something. Right. And he was like, well, I prefer to just play the Strat that I brought because it's got my tone, it's got everything in it. And but they insisted, and he laid down the track. But when he left, or he was talking in this interview, and he said that they would have been more happy if he would have laid down the track with the guitar that he was more comfortable with playing. Yep. And even though it was sentimental to them that they had that guitar on the recording, it would have turned out better if he would have used the guitar that he was more comfortable with.
Well, and that comes to what I think David talked about that before. You don't hire Trini Lopez to be Chuck Berry.
You mean Carl Verheyen?
Well, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But Trini Lopez obviously was the guitar that he was playing. But you don't hire Carl to be Trini, and you don't hire Trini to be Carl.
Yeah,
I think.
And there's different people in. You and I both know there's different people that the way they look at covers. Some people are like, "It's my cover. I'm doing it my way."
Well, it's like you have Dave Mustaine come to the studio and say, "Can you play this Kirk Hammett signature model on this track?"
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So you're lucky he doesn't stab you in the face with there is
a judo backspin Chuck Norris kick.
Right.
He takes out one of his bottles of signature wine.
So we're still talking about cables, in to some extent. I agree with you guys completely. I don't think it's necessarily something that people should stress over because yes, you are, that's the strong point in the chain, and you're only as strong as the weakest link. But I will say this much: I can hear a difference from cable to cable, and I'm not talking about brands of cable. I'm literally talking about, I have two Spectraflex cables. They're sitting here right next to me right now. And I can tell you that the blue one sounds different than the green one. I don't know why. And it's just a little subtle difference in the high end. And it's specifically the harmonics, like upwards of 5K, somewhere in that range. And I use one for one guitar and one for another. That's something that I don't think would come across live to people. But when I'm playing by myself, I can tell, and it drives me nuts. So just for what it's worth, I don't think sometimes we are sitting in our house playing our guitars to ourselves. And that's okay.
This is what I would say to people listening. And it takes me back to an Instagram post I saw of Kenny Wayne Shepherd. He's playing on his couch in his garage, playing a Strat through a vibroverb, and it was crackling, and he was pulling on the, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, it was just the guitar cord I had laying around the house." And I'm like, dude, if this is me, if I've got a guitar cord that's crackly, I'm throwing it out, or I'm resoldering it, I'm doing something. Yeah. And there's nothing worse than going to a gig and worrying about which patch cable is dead. Like you've got 5 pedals, and somebody's like, you've seen it before. They're unplugging all the patch cables and trying to bypass them and trying to figure out which one's dead.
Every time I rehearse with this one.
Okay. But Kenny Wayne Shepherd has usually got a guitar tech. Even if he's at home playing one himself, he's got a guitar tech.
Yeah, but it's like at the very minimum, you should be gigging with cables that you are confident that when you plug them in, they will work. And if
that's why those cables fit in those bags. I don't. I know those cables work, and I don't want to fuck with them. I don't want to break them. I want to bring them. So I have 2 full sets. Every patch cable, every 3-inch, 6-inch, 4-inch patch cable, every single cable, I have 2 of them.
And the studio that I recorded an EP for a nerd rock band I was in called Stroller Coaster. It was a really fun EP, and we recorded it in the same place that like Seether recorded or something like that in Detroit.
Okay.
And it was our first experience in the recording studio, and I stepped on one of the microphone cables, and they didn't light me up, but they're like, dude, those are studio grade microphone cables, and when you step on them, that like wears them out eventually. Like if everybody stepped on them, they'd be broken. So we try not to step on our guitar. We try not to step on any cables whatsoever. And that it taught me a really important lesson, because when you're on stage, you're stepping on cables all over the place, and those cables don't last. I mean, everything eventually wears out because you're stepping on them all the time. So now I'm a little bit more conscious to just, maybe not step on my guitar cables.
Oh, I am such a nerd. You would hate me when it comes to the stage. I take all my cables, I put them out there, and then I put them in like a snake type thing. And then I have these Velcro things, and I Velcro them all up. Every foot, I have a piece of Velcro that goes around the cable. So, and then I push that out of the way. It goes over here, so it doesn't get stepped on.
It sounds like
you just need to make this.
Yeah, get some tech flex.
You need to get this stuff.
Because I want to pull them out every now and again.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
They come out just fine with the tech flex.
Yeah, you just do this and pull them out.
Yeah, it's your own little snake.
Oh.
Jim doesn't want to do it because Jim's afraid that a cable's going to break at a gig, and then he'll have to run another cable alongside it. You
won't believe this. I run all the cables. The ones that are not hooked up are there, so that if I have to do that, I can just go switch the ends, and they're all color coded on the ends, so that you know which one is which.
Yeah, I do that anyway. But yeah, I've built.
I'm a nutcase.
Snakes with this stuff. Like I would build 2 snakes. If one of them fails, grab the other one. Done.
Yeah, or you could just put a backup guitar cable in your initial snake.
Right, and always just have like an extra failover.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy enough. And then the thing is, Jim, when you first do that, and you literally your setup is just woo done. It's a good feeling.
Between guitar cables failing on stage and batteries for pedals, I see people like trying to unscrew their Boss pedal and flip the thing up and unplug it
in the dark, right? It's light in their mouth,
and it's like you left it plugged in, or like even bass players with their active pickups, and it's just like farting out and getting all staticky. I'm like, dude, it's not your cable; it's the 9-volt in your bass. Like unscrew it back and replace the 9-volt. It's like you just got to be on top of that stuff.
Yeah, my thing is like that's part of the reason why I haven't gone wireless yet. I'm probably going to pull the trigger on a Shure GLX here real shortly. I'm selling some stuff to finance it, and I'm like kind of sitting there thinking,
selling blood.
Well, I sold that Pinnacle, which is red, so I'll submit to you that might have been blood. I'm hoping that I can make that work, because if the GLX it works out for me, like then my only concern is I have one more point of failure, which is battery, and that just drives me crazy. Like I just sit there and think about, man, battery going to be dead next time I go to the gig. Like even if I change it, I'm still worried. Like, did it get left on?
Yeah.
On a line 6, on the transmitter, there's two colors. There's a blue color for your signal and a green color for your battery. And when you get within like 45 minutes of the battery going dead, it'll blink red. So okay, I only have like 15, 20 minutes left to play. So it'll at least let you know that the batteries are going dead.
The other option is I get the Boss one, which is like
it's super expensive.
No, the Boss system's $200.
Oh,
You talk about super expensive. Where are you getting
I
that
thought
from?
that the Boss one was expensive.
No, it's
Look, the cat wants your attention, mister. Look at him.
Yeah, I know. The Shure GLX is the expensive one.
I heard the Boss one sounds really good through a katana.
Yeah, it probably does.
Probably does. Probably sounds better than the Shure GLX.
You really don't like Boss, do you?
To a Boss Overshot.
Nick, what is your problem with Boss?
I like I got a Wazacraft Blues driver. But I don't know, Bosses, they're rugged, they're good. I just think that they're meddling with the amp stuff. But I mean, if there's a market out there, God bless them.
Are they meddling though? Because they've been doing it for years. People act like this is the first Boss amp. Dude, Roland's been putting out amps for years.
Roland,
same company. Roland, the JCs. You know,
this thing I've heard.
It would be like if GMC started making cars.
They do.
Well, under GM, like, so now you're saying that
they
Roland.
Do.
I mean,
GMC. Yeah, they make. You're talking about actual cars, not
like GMC trucks and SUVs, but not cars.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
Well, but the thing is, like, how many brands does GM own? I mean,
a lot.
Yeah.
Didn't they shit can a couple of those? Did they shit can Buick? I can't remember.
Yeah,
they shit canned Hummer and they shit canned Saturn.
Saturn, I knew they owned.
Saturn and Pontiac.
Oh yeah, and Pontiac, yeah.
Hummer. They had a great South Park about the Hummer, the whole shit canning a Hummer. It was funny as shit.
Mm-hmm.
But I try not to poo-poo Boss because they are one of the big brands and they're one of the few ones that, like, when they come out with a product, it's gonna be decent. For what it is. Now, like, that's the thing with the Katana, and I think this is what aggravates a lot of people with that amp. Bring the whole thing full circle. Is that people think because Boss came out with an amp and everybody jumps on board because it's cheap. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's Boss. It's got to be good. No, but it does what it's supposed to do really well as an entry amp. But it's not meant to be like it's better than a crate, in my opinion.
I would put it above entry level. I would call entry level your spiders. Your low end. I would put it barely, and when I say above, I mean barely above it.
Yeah, and so I guess
a giggable amp. A lot of these they say, "Oh, you can gig with it," and they sound like dog shit when you gig with them. At least this thing's got the nuts, it's got the right frequencies and the response to be able to actually gig.
Yeah, I guess the only reason why I poo-poo it is because I don't want to say I'm past it as a player, but I'm of the mind where if I really want something that sounds good, I'm going to save up the money for it.
Well, you've got good stuff anyways. So, like, it's not marketable.
Yeah.
Unless you're looking for a backup,
But I mean, I don't think anybody wants their custom pickup maker playing a Katana. I think they want them playing something nicer.
Yeah.
Right. That Blues Cube you've got, that's or not Blues Cube. The
Roland,
the PV, the
Classic 30.
My Classic 30, yeah.
Classic 30. That's a hell of an amp.
It
is.
I'll
tell you, what you just did to it, that's what every single person I've ever spoken to said. If you've got a Classic 30, all you got to do is retube it if you don't like it, and it'll come to life like you wouldn't.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I didn't like mine.
Well, I owned a Classic 100 head back in 1995. That was my first tube amp, and it had 8 EL84s in it.
Wow.
They were horizontally mounted.
Oh my God.
There was a keeper plate in the back to keep them mushed in. And the bottles on the Sovtex were shorter than the bottles on the groove tubes that I tried to replace it with.
So
when I put the back on, it crushed the EL84s and all the pins cracked. And I brought it back to the place like 3 or 4 times, and they were, God bless these guys, like I said, growing up at the guitar store, because they were like throwing screwdrivers at the wall at these groove tubes that kept cracking. Put Sovtex back in, they were fine.
Yep.
But it was 100 watt PV Tweed Classic head. It sounded great.
I knew they made a 50 because I've seen a 50. I didn't know they made 100. Holy shit.
Yep.
I retubed my Classic 30, and I was hoping that I was going to have that impact, and the amp just sounded so flat. I think it was a speaker. I just didn't like the speaker.
How old was it?
It was one of the earlier ones. It was the chrome chassis, like with a Blue Marvel speaker in it or something like that.
Did it have a Blue Marvel logo on the back? Or was it just black?
It had a blue. I'm trying to remember. it was a black tweed, and then in the back, I think there was blue.
It was black tweed.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a newer one then. It must have been late 90s.
Yeah, it had to be. It had the lightning bolt logo though, so I don't know. But it was not. It was a made in USA one still.
Yeah, the earliest ones only came in tweed, and the speaker on the back was just black. Like the speaker was black. It didn't say Blue Marvel or anything on it.
Yeah, that's how I knew it was a Blue Marvel because it was logoed. And the reverb never worked on it, and I remember we took it apart and we like tried to get the reverb going, and there was something wrong with the board. And the foots were fine, everything else was cool, but
the boards on those are really bad. The design on the Classic 30s. Yeah. If you talk to amp techs and you say you got a Classic 30 that needs work, a lot of them will hesitate because there's a board that all the pots are onto.
Yep.
And then there's like a metal wire that connects to a vertical board.
Yep.
And then there's another board that's horizontal that's held together by more clips. So it's almost like a C shape of 3 different boards.
Yeah, I'm going back in time as you're talking about this and remembering.
Oh God! So there's a website where you can mod Classic 30s, and I'm super interested in maybe modding my Classic 30 because I just love the amp, and like I've been playing Classic EV since I was 15, and it'd be fun to kind of take it apart and mod it. But from all the amp techs I've ever talked to, they say they're a pain in the ass. But like for me, I don't know any better, so maybe it's not going to be a pain in the ass for me. It's just going to be what it is.
Nick, for your reference, like this is, we talk about caviar taste, and like you think I would have better taste in tone than where I'm at. But no, it's even worse than that. So the other day I was talking to Jim and we were talking about old PVs, and I'm like, I'd like to have a Bandit, like a solid state Bandit, like the trans tube. I want a red stripe.
Trans tube.
I want a red stripe one. That's
like Marshall Valve State.
Yeah, basically.
No.
Trans tube did not even have a tube in it.
No, I know. It was okay. So I will tell you my favorite amp, if I could have it. They're not expensive and they're easy to find. And when you can find them, they're usually pretty cheap because they're freaking heavy and they're freaking loud. But I love the tone of this amp, and that's a 4x10 Fender DeVille.
Oh yeah, those sound great.
Love that amp, but it's just heavy and loud.
Jim, if you like that amp, do yourself a favor and just get a super reverb.
Well, here's the thing with those the DeVilles, the 410 DeVilles, they sound awesome, and those are like the exclusive like honeymooner amps. You buy it and you say, "Check out this amp! I just got it for $350. It sounds so good." Yep. 2 weeks later, I'm like, "Hey man, you still got that Fender DeVille?" They're like, "Oh man, I had to sell it. It was too heavy. I couldn't take it anywhere."
Yeah, it weighs like 85 pounds.
Yep.
It's like the honeymoon phase is over. I got to sell it. It's too heavy.
I played.
Go ahead.
I played one of those, and the same. That's exactly what happened to me. I switched to the 2x12 version of the same amp. The 4x10 is 85 freaking watts. I mean, that thing is loud. And it is big and it is heavy. If look up the weight on that, David. I want to say that's close to 90 pounds. Oh, look at him.
It's my mother-in-law's dog. I'm babysitting it.
What kind of dog is it?
A Shih Tzu.
Shih Tzu. My son wants a Jack Russell.
Oh, those are nice dogs.
Yeah, a Jack Russell or a what's the short little what? No. Starts with a W, but it's not it's a short little hairy dog like that.
Schnauzer?
No, it starts with a W.
What?
Westie?
A what?
A Westie?
No. Darn it. I can't come up with it. Save my life. But yeah,
Jim.
Yeah.
The weight on that?
Yeah.
It's only 50 pounds.
No fucking way. There's no fucking way a 4x10 Fender.
I'm looking at it right now, and they say 50 pounds.
The heaviest thing I own is a ported vertical 212 cabinet with EVM 12Ls in it.
Oh, Jesus.
Each EVM 12L is 18 pounds.
Yeah.
Holy.
Yeah, they say 60 watts, 4x10, 30-watt speakers, and it is 50 pounds.
Wow.
That is the heaviest 50 pounds I've ever carried my entire life.
They're just big and awkward.
My Flextone 2XL, Jim, was 70 pounds.
Okay,
a fucking 2x12.
When I played in a cover band in
1x12 version of that.
In Milwaukee, I was playing my Rivera combo through a Marshall 412, and the lead guitar player in this Milwaukee cover band had a Line 6 half stack, and it was the Flex Tone 2 XL, and he had the wide Line 6 board with the 2 pedals on the one side.
Yeah.
And he had some kind of custom Ibanez guitar that he'd play through it, and the thing sounded amazing. And to Jim's point, we were playing Bush and No Doubt and Stone Temple Pilots and Walking on Sunshine and a Pat Benatar medley. And he had a tone for everything. And it sounded so good. And I'm like, screw that. I'm just going to, use a wah-wah pedal and a tuner and plug straight with my Rivera and go. And I could sit in with them, no problem. But for all of the flourishes and all of the little tones and stuff, I'm like, he can do that. And I'll just like sit in the mix.
I see Jim is a cover player who's like, I want to get as close as I can to the original. I'm the guy that's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, as long as I got like a similar amp sound, like it'll be cool. I try to get.
I mean, I can't get too close. There's a certain point where you just got to give up. But I try to get like, there's certain effects that you've got to get in there.
I'm not even that way, Jim. Like, I'll play Eddie Van Halen and not even have a phaser on the board. Like, I don't even care.
You are out of that club, mister.
Right there.
What was the club I threw you out of earlier today? You're out of that one too.
What about Three Doors Down? What kind of tones do you use for that?
Nope.
I love Three Doors Down, so shut up.
I love the tones for Three Doors Down that I get shit.
Three Doors Down, Creed and Nickelback.
That was
my cover band.
Three Doors Down. It was a PRS to a friggin' Mesa.
Actually, Nick, if you ever retire from the Kiss thing, you want to do that in a ironic, like really ridiculous sort of way. Like, I'm all for it. Like
Steel Panther.
Yeah.
That's
Creed. Like, yeah, I could do it. I'll make
Steel Panther. Look, they're making a killing at doing that crap.
Yeah, parody rock.
Parody rock.
I'm all.
Oh man, I listened to Eddie Trunk. He was slamming on them guys. He loves them as musicians. He said, but it's just not his thing. He said that parody rock.
He slams on everything. He likes to
Our
slam on
podcast is more important than his.
Yeah, I know. He's kind of funny though.
So I was telling David before that I went to the Ed Roman factory in Las Vegas.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And one of the things we were talking about, like Nickelback and Creed, reminded me of Vinnie Vincent and Eddie Trunk. He actually had at the Ed Roman factory, they had all this wood that was curing, and they had like a stack of all the Steinberger stuff, because I guess when Steinberger went out of business, they bought out all the bodies and all the
everything.
Necks. And in this awkward corner, they had like a double V body, which was the Vinnie Vincent signature model. And they go, yeah, every once in a while we get a call for somebody that wants a Vinnie Vincent Jackson with the double V body. It's like it was like the Randy Rhoads V, but it had two V's that were like kind of overlapping. And it was really wild looking, but they were building one, and they had the body all done up and everything. I thought that was kind of cool. And Ed Roman makes like an Iceman, but the Iceman was made for the guitar player in White Zombie when they did like More Human Than Human and all that stuff. It was like a turquoise green Iceman with like stars all over it, and I played it, and it sounded good. The Ed Roman guitars are actually pretty cool. They got like a PRS ripoff, and they've got some like kind of cool heavy metal-esque kind of stuff. And
yeah, they got some cool stuff, but I've heard that there are rampant quality problems out of Ed Roman's shop. So I don't know.
You'd have to play them,
but it would be different now because Ed's obviously gone. So
they didn't have shit for amps. They had like a couple 5150 half stacks, and they had like a Fender half stack with like the gray carpeting on it, and they didn't have really anything for amps, but they had a lot of cool, interesting guitars in their showroom. And then since it wasn't very busy in there, so I kind of coaxed them into giving us a tour of the back room.
Oh, nice.
It was interesting. It was a really cool experience. So if anybody that's ever in Las Vegas, it's like maybe like a half a mile behind New York in the Bellagio. It's
I know, it's like right there.
You could get an Uber there, no problem, and it was cool. I tried to go to another place called Cowtown.
Yeah.
And we get there, we take the Uber, we get out of the car, and there was a couple dudes that were in like chef's uniforms sitting on lawn chairs. They're like, y'all trying to get in the guitar store? And we're like, yeah, man, is it open? They go, the guy literally closed up and left over the weekend and didn't say anything, just locked it up and went out of business, I guess. And as we were leaving, the guy was like, hey, man, is Cowtown open? And the chefs are like, no, man, come in for some barbecue. And he's like, well, you know, when he's going to be open? They're like, no, man, we think he's closed for good. And he goes, well, if he left with all my stuff. Like, he had a guitar that was there getting worked on. And the guy, like, completely shut down. And the guy's like, how am I going to get my shit back? And the chefs are like, oh, we're friends with the guy. We got his number and stuff. We'll try calling him, his cell phone or whatever. But I'm like, let's get the hell out of here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's messed up.
Vegas was interesting.
Yeah,
Vegas, baby.
Yeah.
They're still listed as being open. Here.
Yeah, they're not.
Or there's medical problems or something. You know, you got to remember when you're dealing with this, because there's only 2 employees there. Like, you're dealing with a place like that. Somebody gets sick. Somebody passes on.
Yeah, I was talking to Ed Roman, his employees or whatever, and he was saying that Cowtown does a lot of their stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
So they don't even need a storefront.
Right.
Yeah, so they could be unopened and be just fine.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I think we're coming to the end of our episode here.
I think we've reached that 2-hour mark.
It's only 2 hours and 48 minutes on the call here. We're flying blind.
That's right. But this is the 1 week I didn't put any notes together.
It's good. I think this is a good episode. I think we had a lot of fun. Nick, as always, if you want to come back, maybe next month we'll have you back on or something to talk about next set of pickups or whatever.
Certainly.
Well, I'll reach out. So, guys, I have been David tonight.
I've been Jim.
And I'm Nick from Great Lakes Guitar Pickups.
Yeah, he said it right.
See? Somebody knows what it's called.
And tonight,
Landing, baby.
Tonight we have been Practical Guitarists.